everybody makes got to have 4 wide receivers through 7. Got to do this. Got to draft. If your first quarterback isn't done by Jordan Love, you got to draft 3. And it's like, who fucking says? Like, when did these things become, like it's not kosher for us to do anything different? Like, we're in like basically year 5 of a game, and we have a sample size of 5. And like, we're never really going to know, I don't think, what like our actual rule is. Maybe some really basic stuff like don't draft 6 quarterbacks. But like around the edges, if you had CJ Stroud and Brock Purdy as your only 2 quarterbacks after your draft and you posted on Twitter last year, people would have said, you're an absolute moron. What are you doing? Taking only a 2 quarterback team with your quarterbacks around 15 and 16? That's nuts. And now look, if you have a CJ Stroud, Brock Purdy team, people are like, why would you ever take a 3rd? All right, guys, the season is almost here. It's a time where Pat and I were talking before the show, and of course we brought on a special guest that I'm excited to chop it up with, where like we're inundated with all the preseason news. We're trying to rip drafts, or you're getting ready for even like your home league draft, and you're just thinking about like all your takes, right? Or all the players you like, or all the draft structure you like, or whatever. And we've done all this stuff over the summer, and I feel like we never, ever stopped to like question, like, are we sure? Like, are we sure that this guy is good? Are we sure that this offense is going to be terrible? And I think back to so many examples over the years where if we had just like stopped in a lot of these situations to ask that exact question, like, are we really sure that this offense is that bad? We would have found like league winners. Like every year, like I think back to, the famous Josh Jacobs, 8th round Josh Jacobs year, right? When he goes scorched earth for the Raiders, the opposite side of the Denver Broncos when they got Russell Wilson. And we all just thought he was going to cure all of their problems, and he didn't. And there's, the Seahawks. And they
played the Chiefs in week 17, so you have to stack that game.
You have to stack that game, and it was miserable. And your MVS, your 3rd round Judy and your 8th round MVS teams, not great that summer, right? But the opposite side, then Seattle was good with Geno Smith, and the Bucs without Brady ended up being good. There's just like so many examples where I feel like I don't do this enough and stop and just say, hey, like, what about if I'm wrong about this kind of thing? Or let's just at least talk about it a little bit. So we brought on the best in the biz, Rich Hribar, aka Lord Reeves, to go through. We got about 5 or 6 categories here we're going to walk through of some things just that's at the top of our minds for some things that we might be interested in. But of course, first, Rich, the kids are going back to school. Football's almost here. You and I were talking high school football before the show. Like, are you ready? Yeah, Friday Night Lights. Are you ready?
I mean, yeah, it's always bittersweet. I mean, obviously the best thing about the offseason is like what you create is like evergreen for like 6 months. And, then we get on this conveyor belt where just stuff dies. You're pouring in all these hours. We're dissecting the games, which is fun. I'm glad to be talking about real games, but you do get on like that, just that treadmill, and it just restarts. And so it's always a little bittersweet in that regard, because it's nice to say like, oh yeah, we've been talking about this for 6 months, or like I wrote this, I can send someone back to it. And I'm like, hey, I wrote this 5 months ago, like check it out. Like, that just doesn't happen anymore.
Occasionally you can even point someone to something you wrote last year. It's like, this is an idea that we can,
exactly.
Just the route share of week 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote something actually last year in the Reddit. I did a Reddit AMA yesterday, and someone linked back and they're like, "Oh, this was like really good advice. Like, do you have anything that like good, that other things like this?" And I was like, "As a matter of fact, I do." Because I mean, this time of year, like everyone always asks me to come on, like July, August. Like I never get like very little do I get asked to come on stuff like in May and June. Once in a while, like Davis always will reach out because like we're just like dudes. But like and everyone asks like, it's like, oh well, who's your favorite player? Right? Who's your favorite player at ADP? And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's like nice to get mix in some different conversation.
That is why, Rich, the last time that you came on, not the show with Pat and I, but why you came on this show, we did a kind of like a little bit of a similar version to this exercise, but we went with all of our worst picks in fantasy football, I think in June or something like that. I need to go back and look, by the way, at that and see if how those are holding holding up.
Still.
Yeah. You notably on that show, and then we'll get to that.
Didn't know the rules.
Didn't know the rules. Shows up. I said we're each just going to pick 3 guys. It was me, Rich, Ben Gretsch, and John Daigle. And we were each going to pick 3 players that we thought were the worst picks in fantasy. And he thought it meant like round 1, round 2, round 3 worst players, and he just so happened to get the randomizer and go first. So he picks Jahmyr Gibbs. I was like, damn, I don't really like Jahmyr Gibbs either, but he's the worst pick.
I thought it was the worst round 1 pick. I thought it was the role was worst round 1 pick.
So we'll see if we. I intentionally left.
That looks really good in hindsight.
I was just gonna say, and
in the moment, you nailed
it. In the moment, we were like, "Damn, Rich, that's a little hot takey to start us off." And then he got hurt, and then he popped a hammy. I intentionally left the rules a little bit more wide open so that Rich can really ping outside the lines if he wants to. But we got it. I'll share my screen for the folks on YouTube. And for the audio listeners, we got, so 6 different categories. We're each going to kind of, we'll riff on these. We'll bounce around, but we're going to start with the subject is, are you sure about that? Are you sure? And this could be positive. This could be negative. This could be however the 3 of us kind of want to frame it. Are you sure about an NFL offense? Each of us are going to give an NFL offense. A backfield. That could be, again, that's totally up to everybody's interpretation. Rookies, second-year players, some form of best ball structure or, like ADP, draft environments, those kinds of things. And then my favorite is bad players that everybody says suck. And is there anyone that you... Yeah, Josh Jacobs a couple of years ago would have been probably a pretty nice one to do right about
now. I don't know.
So I didn't have 0. Yeah, I think we would have been said, yes, he sucked back then, and we were right and still wrong in best ball. But some players that maybe we think suck, but we want to, maybe dissect a little bit further. So let's go ahead. Rich, we're putting you on the spot again first. You're the guest. You get to go. You get
all right.
Your pick of NFL offenses.
On the spot. This is on the cuff too. Nothing planned, but one thing I've been kicking around late in these drafts because you get to this 11th hour and you're like, well, what haven't I done yet, right? Like you kind of look at your player exposure and you're just like, well, where are some obvious holes that I've left here over these 4 months of drafting? And the one thing that I think about is that I keep looking at this Chargers offense, right? I haven't drafted any Chargers, like very little. But like, what if we're wrong that this team actually throws the ball more than we think they're going to throw the ball? And when I say that, it's because when you look at Hribar, every quarterback he's had in the NFL and every quarterback Greg Roman's had in the NFL, Justin Herbert is by far, like not even close to the best passer either of these guys have had. And that's no disrespect to Lamar Jackson, right? Like Lamar's a different kind of quarterback, but like Tyrod Taylor, Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick, like, I mean, there's just what if there is an opportunity where like Herbert is like, this all comes together, right? Because I do think Herbert from like an efficiency stance, like when you're looking at stuff like EPA per dropback or yards per pass attempt, where like he's necessarily been kind of limited these past years based on like who's either been available on the field or like just some jailbreak game scripts, just different things like that. I do think from an efficiency stance, we are going to get the best like efficient Justin Herbert season we've had. I don't know where the counting stats are going to lie, but I do think in like those types of things that we look at that the people that get upset about, like when guys rank high, like when Sam Darnold has like 9 yards per pass attempt, everyone's like, oh, he's not good. But I do think Herbert is actually for the first time in his career, because Herbert's been inverse. Like the ball knowers are like, Herbert's great. Herbert's great. And then you just look at the stats and you're like, I feel like it's going to flip-flop this year, but like, what if we just get more volume because like either the game scripts are a little wonky, but like, or just like both of these guys realize like, no, we actually have a really, like, this is the best passer we've ever had, because the schedule is wide open for these guys. I mean, they open the year with like a really strong schedule before the bye. They end in the playoffs with like some teams that they should be able to beat up on. This is a team that could just be better than like I'm overall like thinking they could be. So I definitely want to get some more exposure to this passing game in particular.
Yeah, I think the ball knowers are right on Herbert too. One of the things I like to look at with the EPA stuff is EPA per game, because I think like being able to load up a quarterback with pass attempts and then have him still perform efficiently is like not a lot of like, that's part of the problem with Brock Purdy. Now, Brock Purdy performs really well in EPA per game too, because he's so efficient. But like if you're hiding a guy and then he's efficient in this kind of hyper specific context of where you're able to deploy him, but you're not able to lean on him, that's just not as valuable as a guy who you can like build the offense around. And Herbert right away was a guy that you could build the entire offense around, and he was still very efficient. So I actually, on Ship Chasing last night, I was making the case that, Herbert, strikes me as is pretty underrated in terms of what the ceiling outcomes could be. This is a really high-end actual NFL quarterback. He has scored in FFPC. We were doing a main event last night, and I was like, he unquestionably has upside when he's going in like the 170s of these drafts, but he has 2 seasons of 25 plus fantasy points per game. Those are his first 2 seasons. He's fallen off to about 20 since then. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to see it because you got a rookie wide receiver in Ladd McConkey who, not the best prospect profile, some things to like, some things to be worried about. Josh Palmer, like when we talk about guys not being on the field, that meant Josh Palmer like was on the field. He might be the number 1. So Quentin Johnston is not going to be a thing. Like it's definitely like you have to really squint to see like this being the year. But I've actually been drafting the Chargers kind of the whole way. I'm not like mega overweight. I actually had less than I thought. I'm at like 9% Herbert, but I'm drafting McConkey. I'm starting to draft a little more Palmer. Part is because I draft a lot of Patriots in there on the other side of that game. But I do think like we had to price in this coaching change. Like it just made the likelihood of them hitting the ceiling lower. But I think we've priced it in too much now.
Especially, I would add, at this time of year, for anybody that's drafting best ball drafts. But, you mentioned Ship Chasing being a managed league draft is always a little trickier. That's definitely not my exact area of expertise. But the pain I'm feeling right now in a lot of best ball drafts and trying to do like still a lot in 3 weeks, like a lot of best ball drafts still in 3 weeks is every time you take kind of some elite quarterback, elite onesies, essentially, and God forbid you take an elite quarterback, an elite tight end, and a running back or something in the first 7 rounds, you're going to get to this miserable range, like round 12 and beyond, is just anybody with a pulse who were like, okay, this guy was a value before, the value doesn't exist anymore. So maybe you got some last round guys that you like now, that you're willing to mix in, but you're going to get to that double-digit round pocket, which luckily enough is exactly where Justin Herbert goes, where you can say, so instead of taking James Conner, I'm going to take Ladd McConkey. But that gives me, like, now I'm freed up to use another early round pick on a running back or an elite tight end or a wide receiver. And I'm like, I got Herbert in my back pocket. He goes next to Chuba Hubbard and, like Michael Wilson. Those are like the best of the other positions, the tight ends that go around him, right? TJ Hawkinson with a blown out knee and Hunter Henry. It's like the opportunity cost around Justin Herbert has now become such that it does feel kind of like a smash now, even if I don't really believe in the Chargers. I agree with everything that you guys have just said. There's no pushback, but it does feel like kind of the market dynamics are coming around to where this is really like becoming eye-opening to me, that this is a really advantageous thing to do specifically now in drafts.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, there's a couple spots where I'm like, this isn't going to work, but you're paying me to see if it does.
Yeah. You're getting odds. What's
the best way?
Kevin from The Office, if you're going to give me 10,000 to 1 on anything, you just got to take it. And that's like that's what it feels like. If I'm willing to do it, dude, I'm drafting Sam Darnold. I'm drafting Daniel Jones. I'm drafting like these guys, right? Like I'm very much that kind of risk heavy type drafter with my quarterbacks. Why can't I dive in on Justin Herbert? The only thing before we move on, I did want to ask you guys, the thing that still has me cautious is just the injury.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
That's the thing that's kind of keeping me from like being like, I'm about to smash Justin Herbert in like a ton of drafts. It's just the injury, because if it takes away, not that he's a big rushing upside, but I would like 300 yards and a few touchdowns or something from him. And if this is at all holding him back, I think that's kind of concerning.
For sure.
All right, Pat.
I'll say on the flip side, are we sure that a rookie quarterback is going to support 3 wide receivers in the top 6 rounds? This, I know Caleb Williams, he's an elite quarterback prospect. I'm not going to do some counter narrative that he isn't. But But I guess I am gonna, point us to a few years ago when we were, taking like the Trevor Lawrences, and we're getting really excited about that rookie class, kind of hitting the ground running, like immediately producing. And I could see a scenario where Caleb Williams 3 years from now is like, no question, top 5 quarterback in the NFL, but also like wasn't a smash to double stack him when it required a 3rd and 5th round pick. Like that, it could be the case that is bad. And I haven't really played it like that. Like, I'm like, oh, these Bears, I like all these Bears. I like Keenan and Dunze more than DJ Moore because they're cheaper. Yeah. But we're getting like the Gerald Everett stuff is not great for Komet, but it's also like not great. And that, like, are they going to run 12? They run 12. Like, if you get full route participations from these guys, and they have a rookie quarterback, and guys, it's Shane Waldron. Like, we're doing this like ASN bull case because he's losing Waldron, and then we're like, and let's invest heavily in Shane Waldron's offense. Like, that could burn us pretty bad. So
Swift is not that cheap. They're one of the more expensive offenses in all of fantasy. They really are.
And I get, like, I understand that we want to be able to, have rules of thumb, like, don't invest in rookie quarterbacks and to like support a ton of weapons because that's unlikely. And we can then say, but it's Caleb Williams. He's the number 1 overall pick, one of the best number 1 overall picks we've had. He's a little different. But how different is he? Because these prices are pretty high.
And I think that definitely the follow up, just because this coming with both, if you want to even include Jaden Daniels, because I think from a fantasy perspective, Jaden Daniels is just a different type of player. But this coming on the heels of the Stroud season, like the timing of it, where everyone is just like, well, like you said, we just like are now throwing it out. Like we used to have, like, they're not hard rules, but like historically, even so, you go back to like guys that have played with 1st round quarterbacks, like, have a drop in production. Like, we're talking like Hall of Fame players like Calvin Johnson, Mike Evans, Larry Fitzgerald, like all had like year 1 drops in production from like where they were, the year before. And just because CJ Stroud is like, well, we're like, yeah, we'll throw that out. We've got this guy that like everyone's excited about, but absolutely. And then, you talk about like the Waldron stuff, like tying it in, like, are guys going to be in specific roles? Is it like, how do the target tree shake out? Because, Komet and DJ Moore had such just lofty target shares over the rest of the Bears last year. And now we're trying to figure out how that fits in. Keenan Allen led the NFL in targets per game last year because no Charger was alive. It's like trying to figure out like just how all these pieces fit together. And DeAndre Swift, especially too, like DeAndre Swift stays healthy for the first time in his career, but he has this drop off in touchdowns and receptions, and both kind of exist as problems again, right? Like, Caleb is a guy who wants to extend plays. Like, he's not a dude really like looking to check down. I know he flipped that nice little flip in the preseason to DeAndre Swift cooks for 40 yards, but like, Caleb is a dude that wants to extend plays and push the ball downfield. That's in his game. So, I mean, is he going to catch a lot of passes? There's just a lot of question marks, like you said, to be aggressively drafting this team. The offensive line still has a lot of pieces that need to come together. I could definitely seeing this team, we look back on it all, the wide receivers especially, like, it'd be easy to look back and say, well, we had that order all wrong. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Pretty easily. Yeah. Like, so I'm on board here, man.
I know you guys, are up on all of the aspects of football, but I also I don't really try to bring it into my best ball stuff, but the Bears defense looks pretty fucking awesome. Also,
it was the back half of last year was really
good.
Incredible.
Yeah.
They were incredible the back half of last year. We were dunking on the Montez Sweat trade, and I mean, I'm still not sure that that's the trade that I would have made if I was the GM. But like, the defense looks awesome. It's like the NFC's bad. Like, how many like shootouts are we going to be in? And then like you said, it's Shane Waldron. What's the pass rate really going to be? Like, it is. So we're 2 for 2 on. We had Mike Leone on earlier this summer that we did an "Aren't You Worried" show, and I really wasn't all that worried about my Chargers fade or the fact that I'm drafting the Bears, and we're 20 minutes in, and I'm feeling terrified already about both of these things. But I think a ton of good points. I'm going to bring up one that I still have to submit my truth serum take to Sal to Sal today. And this is not one that is on my list of truth serum takes. I don't believe this one. But anytime an offense or a player or really anything was last year, everybody was like, yeah, I don't really like him. Like, is he good? Is this offense good? And then they have a good season. And then the next year we just line up to draft them and say they're awesome. I do like feel a little pain in me, and I'm definitely drafting a lot of this offense. And it's the Green Bay Packers.
Right.
Okay. And I'm a big fan. I'm drafting a bunch of Jordan Love, Jaden Reed, Wicks, whatever. I'm mixing in Dobbs. Like, I don't care because I do believe in the offense. But there's a little part of me that's like, last year and for several years since the Packers drafted Jordan Love in the first round, you were like, Jordan, like this dude, like this dude is like, a top 90 pick in fantasy. We would have laughed our asses off at that last year. And then we would have said, not only are you drafting, their best receiver or, in the 60s or whatever, Jaden Reed, you're going to draft this guy who you think is really good for a wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers on 20% of your teams. And he's like probably not a starter. He in every game he's running 30% of the routes, and that's Dontavian Wicks, of course. And we've all just said, no, screw Romeo Doubs. He's boring, but he's the one who plays all the snaps. They're talking about Matt LaFleur hates the question about like a wide receiver one or whatever, right? He's straight up telling us like, no, we just got a bunch of good dudes and they're all going to play. And they paid Josh Jacobs like a bunch of money, which makes me feel a little worried about, their sanity. They brought back AJ Dillon.
They paid him while they had Aaron Jones. Like they thought they were going to keep Aaron Jones.
And they watched Josh Jacobs last year, for his whole career, but specifically for last year. And they said, yeah, this is the dude we want to give a big contract to. Then they brought back AJ Dillon. They watched it. They've had him for years, and they watched him last year, and they said, we need to bring that guy back. They drafted Marshawn Lloyd. So I was like, okay, I at least got this out to this like exciting other running back. Well, then he pops a hammy right in camp, and that doesn't make me feel like rosy about his prospects. I'm not saying my take is that they're going to be bad, because that's not what my actual take is. But there's like a little bit of like, are we getting out over our skis on just assuming that the Packers are this like, whatever, top 10 offense?
So I was just pulling up some dynasty trades from 2022. Superflex Dynasty, I had Jordan Love, and I remember shopping him around. So I sent an offer to Davis Maddock. I said, hey, Davis, I will give you Jordan Love. You give me back Adam Troutman, a 2023 second, and a 2023 third. Then Davis responded and said, that sounds great as long as you add a 2022 second and a 2022 third. And Davis's counter was essentially Jordan Love straight up for Adam Troutman. This is the level of confidence.
Only Sean Payton would do that.
And the Bears. And the Bears.
We were not high on this guy. It was just assumed he would fail by in a lot of circles. So
Devontae was gone. Like, we didn't love Christian Watson. Like, nothing here was something we were excited about.
I picked it around. Do you think that what happened with Jordan Love last year, and then this quarterback class specifically having the COVID runway, do NFL teams go back to valuing like change like experience? It used to be a thing that we'd be like, all right, man, like if this dude hasn't shown us and he's not coming out early, like he's not going to be good. And if these guys, if a Bo Nix, a Jaden Daniels have success, dude, does that impact paired with what Jordan Love did sitting for that time? Are we going to see like a turning of the tide here a little bit for how
more Brandon Whedon's?
Maybe not Brandon Whedon's, but like, do we see guys either sit, because we're already hearing like all the camp stuff, right? Like we were hearing it from McCarthy, and I didn't really buy that.
We've stopped hearing it so much for May after
last play. I don't really believe it, but I just wonder like if it's good, because you would never like on paper you would say like, why aren't teams valuing, like why is Bo Nix thought of as a top 12 pick? Like the dude he's gonna be a almost near 25-year-old rookie. Like,
but isn't Love kind of the anti-Nix? Like he came out at 21, I think. You had to sit him for a while.
And he sat behind Rodgers.
Yeah.
But like that's, I mean, are people gonna look and say like, all right, this guy wasn't good at 21, but these guys like Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix were good at 24, and Jordan Love was good at 24, 25. Like, does it turn into like
is this a Trey Lance take?
No, maybe. I'll get Erik back. Let's pull Erik back.
You guys are. We're gonna shut this shit down right now.
I don't know, and I don't have an answer to that. It's not like a firm take. I just wonder if it's going to impact like any type of logic, like moving forward.
It's like letting these guys right now, like you said, the COVID year and thing. That's obviously not going to continue, but letting these guys actually treating college football like the minor leagues, basically, since especially now that those guys can get paid and they're more incentivized to stick around in college than come out and risk not being a first round pick, right? If you come out, if you go back to school and make millions, or come out and get drafted in the third, you fall to, you're a Sam Howell, God forbid, you fall to the 5th round, like that's a lot of money you just lost by doing that. And so then NFL teams say, I'm more willing to take the old guy, or I'm still going to take the dive on the young guy, but let's
and we did see that still with the young guys, because May and McCarthy, excluding Caleb, because we've talked about Caleb for 3 years, those guys still, that the young guys that still are able to enter the NFL draft will go high. But seeing guys, the aggressiveness for Penix and Bo Nix especially, because like Jaden Daniels, it's easy to see
they're both 24, right? And Daniels is 23.
Yeah.
I mean, the only 2 quarterbacks older that were drafted in the first round of the 2000s, and both Nix and Penix, were Brandon Weeden and Carson Palmer were the only 2 guys.
How much do you think that? And I actually think I'm about to ask this, but I maybe don't think it is that big of an impact. But like the fact that next year's quarterback class is just seen as very poor. If you're like a team, I don't think that factored in with the Falcons.
Also old.
They just fell in love. They fell head over heels.
Could be, yeah. Because I mean, Pickett was a guy that played 7 years of college football, and it was trash.
I mean, Dylan Gabriel turns 24, and he's one of the Heisman front runners for Oregon. He's been at 3 different colleges. He turns 24 during the season. Like there's several more of those guys coming, and the best quarterbacks in college football right now, for the small, maybe for an extended window, but certainly for this current window, are older because of COVID and then NIL being introduced. That there's no reason for Dylan Gabriel to. I'm not saying he's going to be a first round pick, because he's not, but like, these Jackson Dart or whatever is incentivized to go back to Ole Miss, make a couple milli, win 12 games, and stick it out. Whereas before it was like, Trey Lance, come out. You know what I mean? Otherwise, Trey Lance would have transferred to Georgia or something, in the current environment. Yeah.
But yeah, the Packers in general, though, are an interesting team, because they've popped up on like a lot of my team regression stuff. And it's hard to say, because it's like, because the back half of the year, you're like, they kind of found it. Because the first half of the year, they were really bad. And the offensive structure was Jordan Love, pushed the ball deep, really inefficient targets. And then they had him releasing the ball quick. His like depth of target, like absolutely like went from the highest in the league to like middle of the pack. They got the ball out of his hands. He was really efficient. But you look at, they scored on 95% of their goal to go possessions. Not only was it the highest rate in the league, it's the highest rate in my database. Like literally don't have any higher. And I go back to the 2000s. There's only been 5 other teams in the 2000s that have converted 90% or more of their goal to go drives into touchdowns. And every one of those teams scored fewer touchdowns the following season. And then Jordan Love, obviously, the 5 quarterbacks that were like the highest above passing touchdowns over expectation: Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, and Brock Purdy. The 4 of those guys outside of Purdy, all of those teams had really wonky like passing touchdowns or rushing touchdown splits as a team. The Packers, 76% of their touchdowns are passing touchdowns. And it's like, all right, like historically, that's been like a red flag where like, all right, since 2010, 85% of the teams with over 70% of their passing touchdowns have a decrease in passing touchdowns the following season. And it's like, all right, like, so it's like, you see kind of like this natural recall. It's like, well, Love can be good, but does he end up throwing like 25 touchdowns instead of 32?
Yeah.
Less touchdowns overall and less touchdowns through the year.
Him and Lawrence flip-flop, right? Like him and Lawrence.
It does look, but it also looks it feels very similar to the Trevor Lawrence stuff from last year, right? Like it does. Almost a similar archetype of quarterback. Like he's mobile, but like not super mobile.
Yeah.
Like has the weapons that we think are good. And like, there's like one domino kind of starts to fall apart. I think the Packers are kind of, a deeper roster than last year's Jaguars were, but there are some like natural paths here to kind of find like
better coaching too.
Yeah, I mean, and we talk about the running back things. That's like what that coaching tree does, right? Like the 49ers forever have added a dude, a running back. You talk about the Packers doing it. Even Mike now can't help himself. It's like, well, he's never seen a dude that runs like a 4.4 that he doesn't want. It's like,
he's got a type.
But yeah, there's some natural ways to see where this Packers thing, like, they're still a good team, but like maybe the counting stats aren't as good.
Yeah, it could be. Mike, the concerns about how good the Packers are could be wrong. Like you said, they're still make the playoffs. I mean, they ripped the Cowboys to fucking shreds.
Oh, dude.
That was a good old fashioned ass whooping. And like they could still be that good.
And they probably should have beat the 49ers. Like they probably should have beat the 49ers.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. So should the Lions. Which is story for a different day. But it's interesting. It's really interesting because it's just kind of like, and I've been drafting this way, like, man, this Packers are pretty good, and I can get Jordan Love and Dontavian Wicks in any draft. Really,
well, anytime we see a roster though as fantasy gamers, and we see a situation like the Packers where like the wide receivers are fairly nebulous, like we're ingrained to be like, we want a bunch of those dudes because someone's probably going to beat ADP, and that always happens. It's the ambiguous backfield thing, but tied to wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm drafting Bo Melton for Christ's sake in the last round because of this, because I'm like, I think he's kind of good, and like so. I don't know. He's going to play. He's not going to play 0 snaps, and then what if Dobbs goes down or Watson goes down? What if Christian Watson, yet again, he didn't solve his hamstring issues.
I think the problem with the ambiguous stuff here, though, is that there are 4 guys and they use the tight end and we're interested in Musgrave. We're a little interested in Kmet. We're drafting the running backs. So it's like, I do have concerns about, no one really beating ADP because they just kind of rotate. Like they're deep and they like it. They talk about how,
I was like that with Watson to open looking at like Watson's peripherals. I was like, oh, I want Christian Watson.
Yeah.
And then I started to think about like the rotation. It's like, well, this is how they keep him healthy. Plus the thing, like they kind of manage their workload, manage him because they can. Like they don't need him to play, route participation like that. What Dobbs had last year, and then that's how you just run into like weeks where like I probably in redraft leagues now won't want him because I don't want to try to figure out the week.
We see route participation stuff. Michael Pittman runs like every route. Like that's just kind of what he's done since he's entered the league. But like other teams, like they rotate their guys. When the Eagles, I was losing my mind the year that Rager was a rookie, and I was like, why aren't they playing Rager? We know now why. But they were rotating.
That's a New England's Patriots starting wide receiver. Thank you, Jalen Rager.
But I think they had like Travis Fulgham. They had Greg
Arcega-Whiteside. Was Arcega-Whiteside after him, or
he actually had already basically fully washed.
Yeah, they drafted so many washouts. I can't keep track of what order they were all.
But they were rotating these dudes. I think probably no one had 80%. And that was kind of like they just didn't have anyone good. This is a different situation when they have lots of good guys. But I could see Dobbs really having the only like classic sort of full-time wide receiver route participation, and then the other guys rotate. I say Dobbs because I think he's like he fills like the X role a little bit more cleanly. But it's going to be hard to predict like who's even out on the field week to week.
For sure. And like Rich said, I think that they like it that way. I mean, LaFleur's not sugarcoating anything. Every time they ask about the backfield, he's like,
committee.
We're going to play multiple guys. It's a committee. That's what we do. He even said, I think in one of his quotes was, that's what we do here, or something like that, and with the wide receivers there.
He did that with Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
He had a Derrick Henry, Dion
Lewis. Yep.
He platooned Derrick Henry with Dion Lewis.
And Dion Lewis was efficient. Dion Lewis is pretty good.
He actually was pretty good. Yeah.
But LaFleur is a wizard. But I think that he's like onto something, and he just has a bunch of good players.
But that was like the same year, like we got to like week 10, and something happened to Dion Lewis, I think, and like Derrick Henry got like the full workload, and like it went nuts. And we were like, see, like what were you doing?
And then went on to be like the engine of that team for the next 4 years or whatever.
We're gonna keep drafting him because he's Derrick Henry for years and years to come, apparently, in fantasy. Speaking of Derrick Henry and backfield, let's move on to some interesting backfields that you are or are not sure about, or would just like to ask if somebody's sure about. Rich, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have a great one here. I will say just in general, I always want to bring something up that ties this backfield, and I'll just hedge because I don't really have anything for like the specific backfield. I'll just piggyback off you guys. But we the day Pat worked at Roto World, I worked at Roto World, doing news blurbs, and I always tell people like to have like a grain of salt when you hear something about like a player projection for people that don't create projections or don't have like a top-down view of the absolute number of like finite touches an offense have. You'll see it every year. Be like, this guy's going to catch 100 passes, or like this guy's going to have a good year. And we're starting to see this swell up with Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker, Mike McDonald, Ryan Grubb said, we want to involve him in the passing game. He's going to be involved in the passing game. But if the Seahawks are involving Kenneth Walker in the passing game, that means they aren't throwing the ball to either one or multiple of DK Metcalf, Jack Smith and Jigba, Tyler Lockett, or Noah Fant. And if Kenneth Walker out targets any of those guys, that's a bad offense. That's structurally, that's a bad offense. Yep. So I've gotten this question about like Kenneth Walker now being like a dead zone running back we should target. And I'm like, I don't know if I buy this, because Ryan Grubb might have an idea, but like when we're calling plays in a game and you've only got 35 pass plays to call, like how many Kenneth Walker passes are going to be called? Right. And that's without even trying to incorporate like really what is Jack Charbonnet's role, who completely dominated like third down routes run versus a guy, or long down and distance route runs versus Kenneth Walker. We'll see if that flips. It could easily flip. But I always take a grain of salt with stuff like this, because if Ryan Grubbs is going to throw Kenneth Walker the football a lot over any of those players, that's not an offense that is going to be successful.
I love that take. Also, anything to get me feeling better about all my Charbonnet bags is helpful. I appreciate that. That's the first time I felt positive on this show thus far, Rich. So I appreciate you, Pat. What do you got? Unless you got something on the Seahawks, or you got some.
No, I like that one too. I mean, I've been taking Walker when he falls into the 7th, but he seems on this hype to be like really locked into like more the mid 6th now.
Yeah, and
I'm comfortable just like kind of letting him go there. I don't. My thing with Walker is that he's a very boom bust runner, and that is like when we look at like the running back efficiency stuff, it's like, how much do the coaches really care? But I think they really do care if you're boom bust. They don't like when you're supposed to get 3 yards and you get 1. They don't like when you bounce runs outside that didn't need to get bounced outside or whatever. So especially since Charbonnet was like, he had a really good success rate last year, I'm a little bit nervous that, Walker could be kind of like a training camp hype guy where like, of course he's really explosive, but he's the type of guy we normally take in like the 9th round. And then Charbonnet is like a horrible 6th round pick. You know what I mean? Like we normally are drafting the explosive guy who we're like, this dude's better, but he's not going to get the full workload because, they don't trust him on early downs or whatever. Here we're having to pay for the more boom bust runner, and the kind of the steady Eddie's free. So, or, not free, but he's much, much cheaper. So that part of it makes me a little
like
nervous.
75 picks cheaper now because Sharps is falling and Walker's rising. The gap is getting pretty damn huge,
pretty big. Yeah. So as it widens, I'm kind of going back to Charbonnet. Mine would be the Cowboys. I wrote an article about Rico Dowdle that came out this morning. Yeah. So just going to kind of reiterate some of those points. But the thing I would say, are we sure about that, is the Cowboys are signing a running back 3, and that running back 3 will be a big piece of the backfield. I think that the deeper we get here into training camp, the less likely some running back off the street who at this point was cut, they couldn't make an NFL roster. Now you're telling me they're coming in and they're operating as like the 1A in a committee. I am getting increasingly skeptical of that happening. Not that they wouldn't sign anybody, but that player would immediately become the guy we want in this backfield. In part because it seems like Khalil Herbert is looking safe to make the team, and he's the guy I'm actually like afraid of. Like I think he does. He's a good early down runner, and he's like a perfect guy you can plug in, as a piece of a committee, and he'll
be the best back on the Cowboys.
He'd be the best back on the Cowboys. Yeah, he's the guy I'm afraid of.
Runner, sure.
If they bring in P. Ryan or something, that's more like a snap loss issue.
Him and Zeke are the fucking Spider-Man.
The Spider-Man meme. Yeah.
So the thing you got to worry about P. Ryan is if he's cut is going back to the Bengals and making that situation a nightmare.
Yes.
That is also a concern. Yeah, P. Ryan's probably going to screw up a backfield, but it's like it's becoming probably just P. Ryan. Like, I'm not even that worried about Miles Sanders. Sanders just got Sanders would have been passed by Chuba Hubbard and then cut in subsequent seasons, I'm supposed to be terrified of this guy signing? Like, give me a break. Like at this point, when we look at Rico Dowdle, the primary bet is that Zeke is washed and that he's not bad. And you're getting a guy who's been splitting reps with the ones all off season. He's been basically the 1A according to the beats, as far as what they expect. Like, who's going to lead the team in rushing? They think it's Dowdle. He was. There was talked about being one of the kick returners, but probably not, because he's important enough to the backfield. Like, all of this stuff has been pointing in a really positive direction of like, no, this guy's like got a real role in this backfield, a real role in a backfield that he shares with Zeke behind a top 10 offensive line on an offense that will score points. Like, I think we're just overthinking this RB3, yet to be determined risk here, which is a risk, but man, in the 120s, we should be wading into the uncertainty.
It's also not over. If that's the thing, again, I'm always coming.
He would go in the 17th round, even if Pirine went.
That's what I'm saying. You would, there's a difference, and you and I talked about this on one of our in the last month shows or whatever. There is a difference between something changing and the player becoming a worse bet, right? I no longer want Rico Dowdle at pick 125 if Samaje Perine is there, or whoever. Pick your poison, whatever vet. And they already have one of those, by the way. Royce Freeman is on the team. But for now. But
who they love, which I also like that.
Yeah,
I like that
Stephen Jones came out in fucking June and was bragging about Royce Freeman. Like,
he doesn't think they need an RB3, which I love.
The Joneses are on. I want whatever they're on, Jerry and Steven.
I don't know if you do, man.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
You might not be able to
get
come
the
back.
money. If I can get the bank account along with it, then sure, I'll deal with the side effects, I guess. But like you said, all right, fine. But this is like identifying the risk versus reward. The reward is like you just get like 75% of the Cowboys backfield, which is what we were drafting Tony Pollard for in the second round last year. I'm not saying Rico Dowdle is Tony Pollard.
60.
Yeah,
give me 55.
Give 51, dude. I'll take 51%.
Yeah,
as the win condition, right?
Yeah.
So let's just say they sign somebody no long that now we move that down, but he doesn't become whatever. I can't even think of a guy. He doesn't become Royce Freeman. Now he's not like you don't scoff at somebody for drafting him. He's still
it's a
draftable.
Roschon Johnson. He's a Roschon Johnson.
Right. And I think Roschon is fine in the 17th round.
Yeah.
So like, what's the difference?
Well, because you're telling me that this guy we were taking in the 12th round would become completely undraftable because a guy who is currently undraftable will sign there? We're not drafting Pirine today. Right. We're not drafting him.
No.
Hey, I got a couple 20-round shares. Okay, drafters and DraftKings get rough in the 20th round. Okay, I've capitulated, or I've wish casted a couple of
PPR points.
It may have been 10:30 after 10:30 at night after a couple of libations have been had, but I've tried.
You let loose and drafted some out.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, how many more times am I going to take this other shitty last round running back that I keep taking? Let's pretend everybody keeps saying Pirine's going to ruin the Bengals backfield. Let's see if it happens on this team. But I agree with you. I read your Dowdle piece and I already knew. You've got me on Dowdle. We probably don't even have to talk about the Cowboy. I don't want to talk about Zeke.
I mean, I just think with the cost, it's like pretty.
What's the problem?
It's pretty cut and dry. There's nothing because the Cowboys are a team I have a lot of concerns with, like as a team, like potentially cratering.
They may show up,
but that's already priced in. It's literally already priced in. So
right.
Yeah,
and the only other thing I was going to add is there used to be some backs so Chase Brown used to go kind of closer to the Rico Dowdle range, and it was like, I'm not doing that. I mean, Chase Brown goes to pick 100 now, and Rico Dowdle goes to pick 2 rounds after Chase Brown does. So that range also, like I mentioned, the Herbert thing. I just like scroll to that range. I'm like, who the hell else am I going to click besides Rico Dowdle? Like in this range, that's all Nick Chubb. Like it's rough there. So I'm on board with that one.
I was accidentally getting Dowdle just because I was building so many like Eagles, Commanders, Falcons, like Cowboy playoff acclamations. And like I was like, well, I'll take a Cowboys back, like to go across with AJ Brown or whatever. Like, and accidentally was just kind of just pushing the button reluctantly.
He's also a lower owned bring back on the if you AJ Brown Hurt stack. Obviously you can't have CD on those teams. Everybody takes Ferg. on those. And I've done it too. But that would be the chalk, right? Best ball build. Go Rico Dowdle instead, and you have just a slightly different variation. I'm a pretty big fan of that one.
Nice.
All right, so my backfield is I almost included this player on the bad players section, but I decided to go for backfield because there's so many bad players I would like to talk about. It's kind of my thing, is bad football players. But last year at this time, there was a 3rd-round rookie who the coaching staff told us was going to come in. He's going to ease the burden on this starting running back who we're all pretty sure is solid in Jacksonville. And we were drafting this dude in like the 13th round, right? 3rd-round rookie. He's going to have standalone value and contingent value if Travis Etienne gets hurt. And, you say whether you liked him as a prospect or not, we don't have to necessarily get into that. But we were like, I was drafting Tank Bigsby. I was also drafting like Isaiah Spiller. I fell for all those losers, okay, in that range of the draft. But now it's the story is the same. And I totally understand if your stance is just not Tank Bigsby sucks, but also the story to me is not just about Tank Bigsby and whether or not he sucks, although he's playing better this camp. He's returning kicks too, which I thought was interesting. And like it's a lot of positive drumbeat about Tank Bigsby and the continued note of like, this was our plan all along. This dude was just not very good last year. We're feeling a lot better about him. And we really want to back off of Travis Etienne. And we don't want to have him taking on such a big workload in our backfield. And yet Travis Etienne is kind of up in that range where we drop the guys who are like not the superstars, but not the like dusty dead zone backs. I know he's like the old dead zone, right? 4th round or something like that. But that's like not the real dead zone anymore. No. That's the Rashad White, Ken Walker, frankly.
It's the old 2nd round.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. He would have been a 2nd round pick years ago. Yeah. Now he goes in the 4th. But we've kind of lumped him into that elite running back spot. And I'm not sure that anybody ever stopped to say like, yeah, I know how last year went, but like their plan was not how last year went. Their plan was to back off of Travis Etienne because he's not that big of a guy. He's not this, big bruiser of a back. We would like to use him more like maybe 65-35 as opposed to 90-10 with Dearness Johnson. Brought in Keelan Robinson. I'm not sure he's going to be a factor, but Dearness is back. They kind of have some more insurance, whether even if Tank is bad, that I like Travis Etienne as a player. But I just wonder if we're just like dropping him in there because like, what do we do? It's like Pacheco. We just drop him there because his backups stink, even though the team tells us like, no, we're not going to play this guy like every single snap.
It is dead zoney in that like, I don't know that you could really say Travis Etienne is like a super young running back. Like he's not old, but as far as like the breakout season that we wanted, that was more last year. And we kind of got it, but it was very touchdown driven. And his efficiency as a rusher fell off. And so in a weird way, he's kind of a bounce back bet. We're like hoping he can recapture some of that efficiency and, probably help fight off touchdown regression, which could be coming, and potentially losing some work. Like his volume might go down, touchdown scoring might go down, but maybe he's the efficiency of 2022 and then he's a big win. But yeah, I've not been like with as much opportunity cost there is at wide receiver in these early rounds. He's not been one of the guys that I'm excited to take a detour for.
He's the RB11, and you're talking about how we need this kind of, that's a tight needle to thread there. We need him to be a bounce back, but hold the touchdowns, gain the efficiency on probably less volume.
Right.
It's like that's pretty rough at the RB11, like you said, with the opportunity costs in the 4th.
He was a little bit cheaper earlier. Like you could get him like after a 3 wide receiver start and like say, I'm going to throw this volume, just throw the volume at the position. And then he's kind of just the way other guys have fallen at the position and in the top of drafts, he's kind of oscillated, and probably with just more casual drafters coming in, has climbed a little bit. But I mean, listen, here's the list of players that have had 1,400 or more yards from scrimmage the past 2 seasons, which Travis Etienne is on this list. Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, Travis Etienne, end of list. All those guys go in the top 8 picks. All the other guys go in the top 8 picks. Like I'm pretty confident Travis Etienne's a good football player.
Yes.
It's the combination of like you said, like the ADP, especially in these drafts, and then kind of what do we get the bounce back? 'Cause he's had one season where he didn't have a lot of touches and was hyper efficient, and then had one season where he had a lot of touches, and then it was kind of the Joe Mixon season. Honestly, I used to go to backs. I tried to have a lot of Tony Pollard Cope last year. I was like, this guy's having the same season. I was like, he's having the same season, except for he scored touchdowns. Because Pollard and Etienne were like the same. They literally have like the same efficiency. It just one guy scored touchdowns and one didn't.
Mm-hmm. Which I find concerning.
I was just trying to make myself feel better about it every week, But my problem with the Jaguars is they didn't do anything to improve this offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
You're banking on Brandon Scherf at age 32 to improve. He's been declining the past 2 years. Guys like Ezra Cleveland and Cam Robinson have underperformed. You had Mitch Morse, a center, which you're like, all right, cool, but how much is like a center like moving like the needle for you? It's not like they had a Jason Kelsey, right? Like, and then they have a miserable schedule. They have our 32nd ranked projected rushing schedule, which obviously like doesn't mean a lot, but like it still exists, right? Like, I mean, their back half of their schedule is so loaded. And it's like, if this team can't, if this offensive line just can't play better than it did a year ago, I think that's still like a thing that's going to undo kind of all of this. But the touches, like Doug Peterson keeps saying, and he said it all last year, we don't want him handling the ball this much. And then he kept handling it that much.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of tough though, because it's the same guys. I mean, is Keelan Robinson going to start playing long down at distances? Like, it gets tough, man. It's a really tough player to like diagnose, though, is basically what I said.
Yeah,
because I do believe he's like good.
Yeah,
I think so. One of my theses, whatever, about players like Travis Etienne is kind of like, so how you guys aligned it on a lighter workload. He was more efficient as a runner. And then we scale this kind of smaller. He's not a scat back, right? He's much more than that, but he's not Derrick Henry. He's not, Breece Hall or Bijan or whatever. As we kind of scale that guy up to like, dude, you got to handle all of this. Naturally, the efficiency really craters because he's much more of a very good football player, but he's not perfect at everything, which not who is. But I mean, we're paying RB11 prices. I kind of need you to be good at just about everything. I need you to be able to handle that workload. And I feel like those kind of guys will, like, he would be an incredible player in, like, swap him and Isaiah Pacheco, put him in the 65% of the Chiefs backfield role or whatever on the Chiefs. And he would just blow fantasy up.
Well, that's how you use a player like Etienne. I think it's like gives you this explosive element to your offense. He can't do everything. And then, like, I don't know, throw like more screens then. There's other ways to get,
his one out
Kelsey over the middle in short.
His one out, I do think, is just that they could run more 11 this year because of what they had to scale back because of the wide receiver injuries they had last year. Where basically Evan Ingram was their lead wide receiver like the final 6 weeks of the season last year. They obviously went out and used Premier Capital on Brian Thomas. They gave Gabe Davis, it's wide receiver coach, is the wide receiver coach there, the guy that they had at Buffalo, Chad Hall. But like they went out and invested in wide receivers, and so like maybe a more 11 personnel can open stuff up to where he's just like not getting the heavy box count stuff, and they could add some efficiency to it. But I have no idea how to really project his workload though, because Doug Peterson said all this shit last year, and like
and it didn't matter.
If the guys aren't good behind you, like this, we saw this with Kyren Williams. It's what led to this Kyren Williams dichotomy all offseason. Is when Kyren Williams missed time, the other Rams players were awful. They were awful. And they were like, we have to do something about this because we have a 195-pound running back that we can't have handle 90% of the touches again. Like, we have to add a running back. And when they add a running back, of course, every fantasy gamer is like, oh, baby. Like, oh, man, sky is falling. Like, and all this stuff. Especially, but the Rams running backs were so god-awful. And that's what the Jaguars were. But the Jaguars didn't add anybody. They didn't add anybody. So, like, you're banking on Tank Bigsby, who obviously doesn't even have like a great track record of being a good player. So it's like really
weird
hard.
profile. He's a weird college profile. Yeah.
It's really hard. It's a weird situation altogether. And you, like you said, you're it's not like you're paying like a mega discount either.
That's the thing for me, is that I think that, like, betting against him in a vacuum, I'm like, it makes me a little nervous because he probably does have a pretty similar role to last year, and rushing efficiency is volatile. Like, he could hit a couple long runs he didn't hit last year, score touchdowns at a high rate still, and be a pretty strong pick. But he's expensive enough that I'm just okay like doing other things. He takes me out of structure in a way that's like you get punished for going out of structure this year in a way you never really have. And like I would have said that last year, and now this year I'm like, whoa, you guys are really punishing me for getting out of structure. So I'm just hoping that even if I'm wrong about ETN, that he was expensive enough that it makes it hard for him to be a huge hit.
Love that. Let's move on to the rookies. Rich, you have any rookies that you're curious or asking? Are we sure about?
I mean, still kind of for me, it's the same guy, and it's the same guy that probably everyone's talked about all offseason, at least in our neck of the woods, and it's Adonai Mitchell. Like, just what role does he play, right? Like, because AD Mitchell is like the old school like traits-based quarterback draft, right? Like where like you get a quarterback drafted because of traits, like the Josh Allen, and like but the thing that scares me about AD Mitchell is literally any ball knower you talk to loves him. Like absolutely loves him. Like they did Josh Allen, and Josh Allen like look, and I'm saying like he's gonna have a run out, but like I mean, man, like he's a guy like I just don't know. Like he goes in a weird spot. It's like you don't know how many snaps he's gonna play. You don't even really know what wide receiver position he's gonna play because like at Texas he just like ran deep routes. It's like are they gonna try to have him fill in for Alec Pierce, or are they gonna try to do something more creative? Because I actually do like believe Shane Steichen is one of the dudes that gets it.
Me too.
Like I like absolutely stock Shane Steichen. And I do think the Colts from a best ball stance, they've got a great schedule. We know they're going to run an ass ton of plays. Like they're just going to run a lot of plays. They ran a ton of plays at Gardner Minshew. They're running a ton of plays to Anthony Richardson. And it's like, what if this kid just is that? Like, what if it like he is what everyone said he was as an athlete and as a player that they believe that he can be, that just was whatever repressed or like for whatever reason. And he's just a guy I keep coming back to because I really don't have much of him because of where he goes, because it's just he goes in a really weird spot in the wide receiver position, even if you're taking wide receiver. So like he's still a guy that's like, I just need to grab him now, like on the 11th hour and get some more.
I've been hammering AD Mitchell, and I was partly it's because I draft Richardson and I don't draft Pittman. So it's like, all right, well, I got to be drafting.
And Downs is hurt. So
and that's the other thing too. Yeah, Downs is hurt.
I was drafting a ton of Mitchell and Downs. I think they were cheap enough where that double stack was pretty nice. I still draft Downs in like the 140s now that he's fallen a bit, but I was really encouraged by the fact he played out of the slot a little bit with Downs out in that preseason game. Like they're trying to get this guy on the field. They're trying to see what he can do in different roles. Like the worry, and he's actually fallen a little bit since the preseason game, a fall that started before the preseason game because of talk that he was still fighting with Alec Pierce for that role.
But are you scared about his week one role versus?
No,
hell no.
Yeah, I feel like maybe this has jumped the shark a little bit, and just because fantasy information is so prominent, but I feel like there's been an overemphasis on week one depth charts this year.
100%. There has been for a while.
That's week one brain.
We definitely have week one brain with if you're worried about Alec Pierce versus AD Mitchell, especially if they're getting on the field in the slot. Like they're gonna have a package, and probably more than a package for Mitchell in week one, and then he's eventually going to be a starting wide receiver for the Colts if he's good. And your bet is, if you're drafting him, believe it or not, that he is good. That's the bet. The bet is good. If he's good, he will start for the Colts. And yeah, I mean he's like such a weird prospect because like the yards per route run stuff is abysmal.
Bad. It's like, so I'm looking at it right now. I have all of Texas, but sometimes I like to go look just at his team as opposed to just all like I usually just sort of all the wide receivers, which of course he's at the bottom. Him and Jordan Whittington hanging out.
He's bad for a tight end.
By the way, there's a gap even between him and Jordan Whittington for all the Jordan Whittington truthers out there.
All the Texas dudes were really bad in that.
It was
disgusting last year.
Yeah, so that's another thing where it's like, what was happening?
He wasn't good at Georgia though. That's the whole.
There's
Lad was so
AD,
good.
Other than like you said, ball knowers, and he's got that dog in him that you can like say to like really promote him. And so I struggle with that. I mean, Jatavian Sanders had a better yards per route run than him. The tight end on the same team as him at Texas. That's rough.
The other thing you think you have going for you is that he is a downfield playmaker in an offense where if we're investing in the passing game, that's the thing we would want. We want the big plays, and that's what they need. It's what they wanted Alec Pierce to be. Yeah. So you can, and he's priced at a level where it's like, you're going to give me some spike weeks, you know, with the other thing is, I mean, he's pretty good. So I don't know if he's going to be good in the red zone, but he has the potential to be good in the red zone. Like that's where it's like, dude, when this guy is dialed in, like he's a beast. Like he jump balls and all
only
that
Marv
stuff.
has a higher touchdown to target rate from this draft class than he does.
He had 10 touchdowns. We're shitting on how bad, but like that's the thing. Think about having a 1.84 yards per route run, like just woefully bad.
But it doesn't match up, right? Like because his
touchdowns.
even like when you break it down, like his yards per route run against man coverage were one of the worst in this class. But like literally when you watch like something Harmon does, or like so they're like this dude's open every play. And I'm like,
Harmon was pretty into him.
I'm like, they're like this every ball knower is like he's open every play. Like
he never moves around. He never moves around the formation, right? He stays on the left side. Like nothing. 3.4 yards after catch. His yak was 3.4. He was falling down. He was goddamn Jalen McMillan.
And that's something that might have been like air yards driven. Because of where he was getting his targets, but
it's 8
out. It's weird. It's one of the odder profile. Like if he smashes, like ends up being like a genuine hit. Like it's just gonna be one that I don't know. I just don't know. What do we take from it?
bet on athletic guys who get drafted high. You know, I think that's the lesson. And we have that lesson. Like we know that, you know, part of the appeal of rookies in best ball, especially, and you know, in Dynasty, really part of the appeal just generally is that we don't know if they're good or not. And some of the guys get priced like they're definitely not good.
Correct.
We don't know if they're not good. So, you know, Mitchell has flashes that would make you think he could be good, and that would make you think if he is good, he could actually be really good. So I've been in like, and this is not a profile that I like as when I just evaluate the prospect profile, but in this setup and at this price, I think it's pretty appealing.
I think that's fair. I was going to throw out my last question on it, like not just AD Mitchell, but the profile thing. Cause like I said, this is not like we got a bunch of them in this class, by the way, Keon and AD Mitchell and these guys. I'm just like, I understand I'm not like, you know, ignorant to why people like them. But when I just break down like a lot of the data driven stuff that I like to look at, it's like, woof, man. Like I'm just latching onto draft capital and touchdowns, you know, like, and the ball knowers, you know, like I'm just latching onto that. And so I get what you're saying. Like, all right, second round pick, athlete, some people like him, whatever, fine. But that also leads you to like Jonathan Mingo. Yeah. Right. Like you
I've been trying to find access to the Colts, like outside of, because, you know, obviously like Pat, I have not been drafting a lot of Pittman. And if you're going to take Jonathan Taylor or Anthony Richardson, like you basically have one window to take either of those guys.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, this is a team, this Colts team is, I believe, going to punch above its weight. I think they were set up to do that last year in the small sample we saw Richardson. They were punching above, I think, expectations while Richardson was still passing like shit.
Yeah.
And I think this is a team that it's like, I want to find access to because I think they're going to have points scored.
Yep. No, that's where I'm at. But I think Mingo is a great point. Like we're taking on risk here. It also is the process. Just bet on the draft capital that got you on Rashee Rice and got you on Jaden Reed a little bit. I know
do we just have to pay the tax
as a prospect, but
right? Do you just pay the tax and just
I think so?
Yeah.
I think especially like if you can see, you know, the upside in it coming together. Like, can you see AD Mitchell like putting up big weeks with Anthony Richardson? Like, yep, I can.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Next up, another rookie. Pat.
All right. So remember how I said it's enough to bet on athleticism and draft capital? What if we take that to its logical conclusion and say, are we sure that Xavier Legette is definitely 100% going to bust? Because that's how we're kind of pricing it. And look, I mean, he was bad prospects and, you know, he had a pretty bad summer. He's injured through his first training camp, just recently got back to practice. Like he's about as risky of a pick as you can make. But as far as best ball goes, like how risky is it really? Because he's a first round pick. Jonathan Mingo is the competition here 4 route.
Nice segue.
Right? Like we've got Thielen in the slot. We got Deontay Johnson. We're talking about Jonathan Mingo here. He's going to pass Jonathan Mingo. He's going to have some, I mean, unless he's just horrendous. But, you have to, the bar is
Terrace Marshall? You think Terrace Marshall is going to hold him off? Yeah.
Can't be Jonathan Mingo. He's got to be a little bit better than that. But if he is, then he's going to be out there. And you're getting like a free look at this first round pick kind of being any good at all. And he's athletic. He can be used, on yards after catch stuff. He's got size. He was good one time. It took a long time.
Took a long time.
A lot of years.
I mean, without COVID, we don't not know who Xavier Legette is.
Yeah, that's true because he got that extra year. Yeah, so I mean,
he might be like an actor though. He's got or like a voice, a radio. He's got the voice for something.
That's true.
Famous. He was going to be famous.
He was going to be famous no matter what. Yeah, but I just look. I think he's going to bust, but are we sure about that?
But are we sure?
Yeah.
I think the biggest pro for Legette is when he got drafted where he was, which I was pretty surprised. My worry was that Canales, coming from 2 years in a row where he had a guy like DK Metcalf and a guy like Mike Evans, and it was like, oh, am I going to try to make Xavier Legette that guy? And I was like, oh, this could be a mistake because he's just not that type of player. And he did a complete 180 from what I thought, because I was worried about that. And he was like, no, we're going to use it where we want to get him the football like near the line of scrimmage. But I was like, all right, he at least knows what he drafted. Because I was really worried about like, all right, he's just trying to get like another big body guy that thinks he can win as an X, because that's not what Legette's game is. No. So at least Canales feels like to me, at least he knows what he bought. And that's a step in the right direction.
I think I struggle with Legette more than even like AD Mitchell. Like I'm willing to pay the tax, but also like I also think when AD Mitchell hits, it's not in such a way. It's not DK Metcalf. It's not Justin.
I'm at 7%. Like he's not a guy that I'm hammering. I mean, I'm slightly.
I'm drafting more AD Mitchell than Xavier Legette.
Oh yeah, way more for me.
Yeah.
But so is that bad?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. But like
he's so much cheaper.
It's fascinating because you're like, okay, let's look at the target competition. Deontay Johnson, that's it. Like literally, that's it. Who cares? Dave Canales, cool. We're down to bet on Dave, just like the Colts thing, right? We're down to bet on the situation. Most people are down to bet on Dave Canales. And then I do look at, if I set aside how old he was and I set aside all of the 4 years of literal nothing, just absolutely nothing. He did about as much as I did for 4 years.
He did have a weird like circumstances, like how he got there though. Cause like he played baseball and like had injuries. It was an odd path.
But like Spencer Rattler stinks. Okay. And South Carolina stinks. They're bad. And he had 96 targets, and the second leading target getter on the team had 46. When he was on the field, the offense was Xavier Legette. Like it was his. They couldn't run they had one of the worst off. If you go back and watch some of their like especially SEC games, so I'm maybe being unfair to Rattler. He was running around like praying for his life the moment he snapped the ball, and he was just like, where is Legette? Because that's the only way we can move the football in the SEC. He was the one SEC football player that they had, basically. And he was efficient. He had 3.1 on that offense. He had 3.15 yards per route run.
And he was really good versus Georgia.
Yeah.
Like, he gave Georgia trouble.
Yeah. So it's like you try to put all that together, but then you also add in all the extra, things that we care about. And there's a bunch of these guys in this class where I'm just like, dude, I don't know. None of it makes any sense. None of it really makes any sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, he should be like Cedric Tillman, like he should be a guy who we're taking in the very last round and went in the third round, but he went in the first round.
He went in the first round. Yeah.
So I'm just like, I think I have to draft him once he's in like the 160s. I just have to.
Well, I mean, compare where he goes to that pocket of receivers that went within like 10 picks, right? Like,
yeah,
because there was that whole pocket. That was my whole antithesis for taking Polk early, was like, why is he so far away from these other guys?
I mean, speak on that.
Please no more Patriots.
I'm just curious for your thoughts there.
Please God, no more Patriots. We are legit like a week away from like Greg Dortch going ahead of Xavier Legette, by the way. Like on
is he not already? I mean, I believe that. Like,
George
just
might-
feels.
he
it
might
feels
George is like a 4th round pick now. My Twitter says that he's like a 4th round pick.
It truly is Short King summer. I mean,
amazing. R.I.P. Rondale. But another rookie who the draft capital and honestly some of the situation doesn't. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Just the whole evolution of the summer. And the most interesting part to me is this is like the final movie in the trilogy that is Zach Ertz, where he's the veteran guy in front of the young, talented tight end behind him. Specifically the last 2 years with second round, that last couple years with second round draft capital, who like everybody just like, dang, he's behind Zach Ertz, the week 1 brain thing. It's like, and yeah, Zach Ertz is going to play the first snap at this as a starting tight end of the Washington Commanders this year. No question. Ben Sinnott was a second round pick. He was the tight end 2 in this class. And I'm not trying to say he's Laporta or McBride or any of those guys because he wasn't that level of prospect, but I liked him as a prospect. He was my tight end too.
He was my tight end too as well.
In this class. Obviously, there's a very clear number 1, so it's a little tight end 2 behind Brock Bowers is like there's a tight end 1, and then there's like a bunch of nothing, and then Ben Sinnott.
But I didn't see any hot takes out there of a non-Bowers tight end.
Yeah, there was no
Jatavian Sanders.
Disappointed in the fantasy industry for no one stepping up with that hot take.
Yeah, the cowardice of us to not say, are we sure that Brock Bowers is the tight end 1 in this rookie class? We didn't go that far, but
he's another week 1 depth chart guy I don't care about.
Zach Ertz or Brock Bowers?
Sinnott. Are we talking about Sinnott?
Yes. Yeah. So my guy is Ben Sinnott, who
I assume that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. we just mentioned like 7 rookies.
I thought Luke McCaffrey.
I do like Luke McCaffrey too, but it's a little more bleak for him than Sinnott. When Zach Ertz is in front, it really is just kind of funny. Like it's like the best ball gods or the fantasy gods are doing this thing. Like, they're playing us for the 3rd time. It's like, well, Zach Ertz is the week 1 starter. It's like, yeah, but Dallas Goedert's behind him, and Dallas Goedert is just a lot better than he is. Yeah. What happened to Zach Ertz that year? See ya, Zach. Cool. He's the greatest locker room guy ever.
Actually, that was the year he paid off though, because he went to the Cardinals and they peppered him.
That's true. But so then he goes to the Cardinals, and the Cardinals traded for him, and they drafted Trey McBride, the Mackey Award winner. Trey McBride comes in. Now he waited a year right before it was second year Trey McBride when he really took over.
Second year Trey McBride that he smashed.
So it doesn't mean that Ben Sinnott will do it this year, but I'm certainly down to find out about this second round tight end, and he's now going. I should have had it pulled up, like 185 on Underdog. Like he's nearly a last round pick, 16th round pick at tight end. He rose when he went in the second round. At first, it was like everybody was who could rank Ben Sinnott higher, and then over the course of the summer, people are like, he's maybe not going to be an early season play. So now's the time to draft, right? All these rookies, honestly, that we're talking about here, I didn't really have interest in before. And now I'm like, as the market has changed and they've gotten cheaper, and Sinnott's one for me where I'm trying. I used to really, really love elite tight end. I still do, but I'm trying to be really cognizant of where I draft that second tight end, because you can really run into trouble if you overspend on the second tight end. Sinnott's really fitting kind of cozy. And to me, it's I'm trying to get a lot more Jaden Daniels. And if you don't have Terry McLaurin, it gets pretty, it's like rough to stack him. So Sinnott's a really nice option for me. And I could just see like down the stretch, I'm not saying he's going to be Trey McBride, but we're getting like that kind of, he's the tight end 1 for this team from week 10 on.
But even in Trey McBride's rookie season, he, along with like Chigakonkwo and someone else, I'm forgetting now, all kind of came along in weeks. Dulcich, that's what who it was. Yeah. They all came along at the end of the season and were like, in a high stakes league, we lost our starting tight end to injury. It was probably Pitts. And we were like scrounging around on the waiver wire for a tight end. And it was those rookies were the guys that were available and, actually putting up some points. I think Okonkwo ended up having a big week. McBride had a big week 17 that year, maybe. So like, you don't even like, could he be bad McBride? Bad McBride would have paid off as 18th round pick. As long as you get to week 17.
I have no problem with Sinnott. My biggest thing was the same thing from the draft class, was that just like he's kind of a master of none. And that's kind of been like his one bugaboo with like no coaching staff like talks about like playing him at tight end, but like he's a great athlete. He can kind of do a lot of everything. And it's just like, does it fit? Like sometimes those guys for like fantasy football don't come together. Like they're good at the game, do everything. And like, that's like the one like obstacle that he has to face is that he doesn't have like a true position.
Guys. I'm obsessed with those
he's
guys.
Like a Swiss Army knife. Like, he's hashtag good at the game, but
it's kind of Jakeem Bellish, but
that's another team that they're gonna run so many plays.
Right.
I had the stat yesterday. I did with JJ where with Cliff Kingsbury when he was with Arizona 2019 to 2022 ran 1,491 no huddle plays. The next closest team was in the 800s. Like, it's like, dude, they're gonna run so many plays. Like, just getting luck boxing into a week when you need it could be a difference maker, especially if you're, like I said, like building those amalgamations of Commanders, Falcons, Cowboys, Eagles.
Yeah. The only other thing I would say on Senate is we've heard a lot of the camp rumblings, and there's been a lot of notable hype. Hype is not the right word. News about Jahan Dotson playing in the slot, particularly ahead of Luke McCaffrey, but just Jahan Dotson playing in the slot and De'Ami Brown playing out wide. But Dan Quinn has basically come out and said, like, Terry is the guy, and we got no idea what. So he's giving everybody kind of a shot to like. This is not just a competition for wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3. We got one wide receiver, and so I'm not saying they're gonna. Like, Cliff is not gonna come out and play a ton of Ertz and Sinnott together, but there are paths to like a little bit of chaos here when Jahan Dotson is possibly your second best wide receiver. It's like, if Sinnott's just good, like, and we still want to rely on Ertz to be, this 4-yard check down artist, like, let's get Sinnott on the field a little bit more. Let's figure out ways to get our best players on the field. Like, you just have outs, you know what I mean? With it's not, this isn't like stone zero for 12 weeks, pray that he takes over for Ertz down the stretch, but also, like, does anybody expect the Commanders to be awesome? No. So, like, they're going to be probably incentivized to play Ben Sinnott at some point in this season and not keep trotting out 34-year-old or 35-year-old Zach Ertz when they're got 3 wins.
I could see just in general, outside of Terry McLaurin, that there just being a lot of rotation with the skill players in Washington. Like a lot of movement there, especially because they're going to run more 4 wide receiver stuff than anyone like in the league. Like, this is what Cliff does. And we know the backfield the same way, right? Like, it's just going to be a lot of pieces moving outside of McLaurin.
We're going to be like, they have Antoine Winfield on this team?
Like, just random dudes.
But nobody is going to run more 4 wide receiver sets with the worst
4. They did it in Arizona, man. Like, they're going to do the same shit, man.
So bad.
Yeah, we talk about the Packers guys.
Yeah, seriously, the Packers, they should hire Cliff just so we could see all these guys on the field.
Honestly, it's bullish for McCaffrey. He might actually get out there. I'm Googling they have Martavis Bryant.
They just signed him. They just added him. And Olamide Zacchaeus, they were talking. Someone was trying to talk up. He was
the first wide receiver Dan Quinn mentioned when he was asked about wide receiver 2. He didn't even. They were like, "Oh, are you going to do the same thing in the second preseason game?" And he basically went on this thing about the wide receiver competition. And Zacchaeus was the first wide receiver he mentioned. Then McCaffrey.
I think they still have the ghost of Jason Crowder floating around there.
Yeah, Crowder's on the team. It's wild, man. Just a wild team. They're very and they just hired Dan Quinn. Hired Dan Quinn and Cliff. They're very unserious.
All right.
But, second year.
Hang on, let me ask you guys something. So, Commanders wide receiver. I'm gonna give you a few. You guys tell me which one's made up. Okay. Casimir Allen, Brevin Brixton,
I don't know who that is.
Bryson Tremaine.
Which one did I make up? I've heard of Casimir Allen.
Yeah,
I know that's a person. I'm going to say Brixton. Yeah,
that is a made up one. Yeah.
Okay. They have I think they have the other Georgia rookie receiver too. The guy that didn't do anything. I don't remember.
People just take the Georgia guys and pray. Like, when all fails, just take a Georgia guy, even if he was filling up the water. He didn't do anything for 4 years. Or like AD Mitchell, transfer from Georgia. People are like, I don't really care about his numbers. Like, he was on the Georgia football team at one point in time. So let's roll with it.
We're gonna know about Bryson Tremaine by the end of the year.
Probably, unfortunately.
I hope so.
Let's transition from the rookies, Reeves. How about a second year player
Listen.
Either are we sure good?
One of my highest owned players every 18th round, baby. Jalen Hyatt. 100%. Blitnikoff Award winner. Everyone thought there was a time last year we thought Jalen Hyatt was going to go in the first round.
That's true.
And everyone knew that he was going to need a transition to acclimate himself to the NFL because of the style, that bullshit offense that they run at Tennessee. But we're getting in there. If you go back and watch the Giants, I think Steve Smith did a video on this. He was open all season, like downfield. They just couldn't get the ball. So maybe that's a problem again. Same quarterback, same thing. But I definitely believe the Giants are in between the two versions of the Dayball team we saw. I believe that, there was an overcorrection last year, but they overachieved year one and they underachieved last year. I do believe they're somewhere in the middle. I do have faith in Dayball as a coach. I do think Dayball is a guy that gets it. And you're telling me I can get a guy, maybe he ends up the next D.D. Westbrook. Maybe he does. But I can get a guy that we know is going to be on the field, has a supreme trait, and in a best ball league, like if this dude catches a touchdown, it's going to be from 45 yards away. And he's just got pedigree. Like, I mean, I've just been taking him on the premise of we know year two wide receivers. This guy, like I said, Blitnikoff order, all the stuff. Like I'm just taking him, and I don't give a shit.
I love it. He was on my list, and so if you guys didn't mention him, that might have been the guy that I brought up, mostly because I just wanted to hear you guys take on Jalen Hyatt. So I'm glad you did.
Well, like he was running ahead of Darius Slayton in training camp, and then in the preseason, it looked like Slayton was still ahead, and I'm like, when is this guy going to finally pass Darius Slayton? I have a bet with Pete, Darius Slayton versus Jalen Hyatt, but I feel like pretty live to win.
Yeah, you should be. Maybe Darius Slayton's the guy we should talk about, bad player, but just continues. Every week 15, he's just catching touchdowns.
Yeah, he's totally solid. But I mean, Hyatt has been like, when I saw that he was still behind Slayton, I'm like, oh man, okay, it's not happening. But you're right. It's like it's worth just betting on his downfield speed, his breakout potential. Really, if he's any good, then he really adds something to this offense. That Slayton, like everyone, kind of wants the Slayton thing to end, including Slayton. He's trying to get more money out of them.
We didn't talk about this, but offenses. But like, what if this offense doesn't suck?
Right.
Because Wandale, Jalen Hyatt, let's just say let's count Jalen Hyatt and Darius Slayton as one player in that role. Mm-hmm. And you got Wandale and you've got Neighbors. And like Bellinger at least was a really athletic player. And you got Theo Johnson, another athletic player to be red. And they improved the offensive line, not to the sense where I think it's going to be good, but they actually threw enough like veteran bodies at it that I think like it won't be a travesty like it was last year. And obviously we're counting on Daniel Jones. Like, what if this offense just like isn't bad? And like we're wrong on everything. Like no one's expensive outside of Neighbors here.
No, it's true.
And people were dabbling with Tracy, but like no one's drafting Devin Singletary. Like
I draft him some.
I mean, I appreciate it, but like, you know what I mean. No, in context, not like this is year, but you know what I mean. Like no one outside of Neighbors is expensive here. Like,
Leone probably is.
This team could be like because 2 years ago they actually showed signs of life. And guys like Isaiah,
signs of life. They won a fucking playoff game.
Isaiah
they won a playoff
was,
game
starting,
2 years ago.
Dude. Like, and like people were like wanting to play Isaiah Hodgins. Like these guys are all more talented than those dudes.
Yeah.
Richie James and
I drafted Richie James last year on the stupid Chiefs because of what he did on the Giants down the stretch. Because you're like, well, he carved out something. Turns out he's just
Richie
terrible.
James was a sharp psyop. That was
I'll tell myself that, and I'll try to take when I go to the bank and ask him to deposit these Sklansky's, I'll let him know, like, the guy that won Best Ball Mania told me that this was a really sharp psyop that I fucking fell
even
for
the Sklansky bank wouldn't accept.
No,
Richie
the
James
the bank of Sklansky's like, I think you're taking this one a little bit too far.
Sorry, bud.
The Giants. I just felt like this is an appropriate time for me to say the Giants are like basically my highest exposure team up there. They're up there. Daniel Jones is my highest owned quarterback. Devin Singletary is in my top 5 running backs. Malik Neighbors and Tank Dell are kind of 1A, 1B for early round wide receiver exposure, highest exposure guys.
Daniel
and then I do
was going as a fringe QB1 last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. The injuries, the injury guarantees. That's where do you add on that, Reeves? Because that's been what's kept me off of Jones, where I tend to take these Giants, like I take a lot of Neighbors. I don't stack him with Jones very often. And I was ready to start hammering Tracy before he got hurt. I thought he was one of the better picks on the board, already locking up the RB2 role. But with Jones, they have pretty I don't have it pulled up, but pretty big injury guarantees. And so if they miss the playoffs, it's like, honestly, it's just like irresponsible to
like last year with Russ.
Yeah, like last year with Russ.
Because
like
no one could believe that they were like benching Russ or sit him, but they were done. They were out. And there's a scenario where the Giants are just like, this is it for Daniel. Like, there absolutely is a non-zero chance that the Giants are using this season as saying, like, he's either going to be our quarterback in 2026 or he's absolutely not going to be.
Exactly. And 2025, I mean, they can.
Yes, I meant. I'm sorry.
They can save almost $20 million by cutting him after the season, but he's got.
He'll be a guy that they'll be like, there's so much dead cap they can cut him. It's like, dude, no, they can totally cut him.
Right? No, they can absolutely cut him. So that's where I'm like, I'm nervous that if if they don't make the playoff, it's very binary to me. Like, either you win and this team is really good and they all hit together at cheap prices outside of neighbors, and then they make the playoffs and Daniel Jones is really good down the stretch or whatever. But if you miss, it might blow up a hole in your roster. Is my concern.
I don't have much of them because I very rarely do the 3 QB. I just don't have a lot of 3 QB teams in general. So outside of the formats where it's extra rounds, so I don't have a lot of them.
And it is $23 million that guarantees.
But I get it
for injury.
I mean, that whole pocket of guys is going to be fun. The whole Levis, Gino.
Oh yeah.
I think the interesting part about all the late guys is really almost all of them have varying levels of some form of bench risk.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that's
throw Darnold in the mix now, too. Like, Darnold is non-zero to, like, if Darnold has, like, 3 bad games in a row, like.
Yeah.
And my
McCarthy's not on IR yet, by the way. My brother's a Vikings fan.
Jesus Christ.
There's still cope there.
Through it.
But, I was talking to him about it. I'm like, it would actually make sense for them to not put him on IR until after the 53, because you would at least get the practice window where you could pull him off the and then have him practice with the team. He's unlikely he plays a game this year. It's like very unlikely, but I wouldn't be surprised if they try to get him on the post 53 IR so that they could at least do the practice window thing.
I'm just trying to read about maybe we don't have to dive into it right now. We can talk about it offline. I'm just reading a beat writer for The Athletic talking about that $23 million of Jones's $30 million salary for 2025 was guaranteed for injury. So is that the $23 million that you're talking about? And then he goes on. This is a lot of word salad that I'm trying to diagnose on the fly.
Yeah, no, but he currently has $22 million in dead cap, which is from like his previous, signing bonus and whatnot. But that leaves $20 million of savings. But if you guarantee $23 million of his salary, that obviously would wipe that out.
In this article, he says, this is a quote. His $35.5 million salary for 2024 was fully guaranteed at signing, which is why there's no chance the team will dump him this offseason and why the injury guarantee won't enter into the equation until next year. Is what I have no. Look, I'm not citing this guy.
But he's saying 2024. 2024 is this year,
right? So it's guaranteed. What they have to pay him is what they have to pay him this year.
But 2025 is guaranteed as well. But 23 of the 30. So if he gets hurt this year. Like, if you put him out in week 17 and they definitely are eliminated from the playoffs, and you want to move on from Jones after the end of the season, then you are dumb because you're risking not being able to do that.
For sure.
I think this happened to Derek Carr 2 years ago too.
Yeah, that's right.
It's always Stidham. What team is Stidham on? So he's not, it's always Stidham. Like, we got to find this guy.
Bo next is in trouble.
The one thing I like I'm not saying that this is right, wrong, or indifferent. My quarterback process is just kind of like, dude, 60 something quarterbacks started games last year. I totally get like avoiding risk and stuff, but I don't want to avoid risk to draft Bryce Young.
But that's so funny. I was going to bring him up
here. Who may come up here in a second.
Yeah, because he's Howell. We did Howell, and it's like, oh, you can draft these guys who have. Now, I was drafting Stroud and Young, and kind of like
obviously Stroud. Yeah,
but
would have been better,
but now it's like I'm also drafting some Bryce Young, and I'm not really drafting Jones, and like in a lot of scenarios, Bryce Young's just a bust that does nothing for you, even though he starts all year. And Daniel Jones maybe helps you even if he does get benched. So
that was the thing that I was just going to add is like, yes, in an ideal world, is Daniel Jones playing all 17 games for sure, but he's not my QB1 in any team that I'm ever drafting, right? He's a 16th round pick. So, and that was like my Howell experience last year. It was like, dude, I got an infinite amount of things wrong last year, like an infinite amount. And Sam Howell was one of the things that kept me afloat. Even though he wasn't helping me in week 7, he didn't help me for the final month. Quite frankly, he either scored 2 fantasy points or got benched and scored negative. So it was really bad for Sam Howell down the stretch, but he was so good for his price the first, 3 months of the season that it kind of was a wash. I'm not saying he was a smash, but it was fine. And I think
he was kind of a wash. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I'm comfortable taking that. Obviously, if Daniel Jones is just bad and gets benched, that's the worst case scenario. But like, there's also the risk of, I like to call them, like we talk about dead roster spots, but there's like the walking dead roster spot. And that was Bryce Young last year. It was like, he's playing, but like, who show up to week 17 with Bryce Young in your team? Tell me if you give a fuck if he's playing or not. Like you didn't care. He was like,
it's better than not, but yeah, you're right.
I had Kenny Pickett as my quarterback too. He was watching Mason Rudolph. He was scoring about the same as Bryce Young was in week 17. So, but you have to do that balancing act, right? And not every quarterback should be treated. Like I don't want to treat Derek Carr the same as Daniel Jones in that from a risk level perspective, because Derek Carr.
Do you like Jones or Darnold more now?
Darnold,
because of the leverage.
Yeah, he's like Daniel Jones has been drafted in just about every single draft, and Darnold was not drafted for 70% of Best Ball Mania.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and my slows, dude, if you still got like slow puppies, like not the new puppy, but like the slow puppy or whatever that was, like he's gonna be like drafting like 5%, 10% of those. Like it's been closed before JJ McCarthy got hurt, so you got your slows. I'm just ripping them in every single one of those and praying to Kevin O'Connell, please,
him and Jalen Naylor. You're just punching that ticket.
You're goddamn right. I got a lot of Jalen Naylor. That's a fact. All right, second year player. Let's keep it moving. Pat, is Bryce Young your guy?
No, Bryce Young's not the guy. I think we're all.
He's gonna be mine. I'll just spoil it.
Okay. We can talk about him. But I'm gonna go. I've been very hot and cold with this second year running back Chase Brown, and I've kind of been. I haven't been playing this one all that well by the price, right? So he's in the 120s, and I was about 10%. I was a little overweight, and I didn't hammer him though. Obviously, feel bad about that because the price rises up a ton with the I think he's kind of the lead guy. It sounds like all right, got to hammer him before he really, really jumps up. But then he's bouncing everything outside, and the tape guys, they're getting to me here where I'm like, are we sure? At this point, now that I'm up to 14%, I'm like, I'm in. I've got the bags packed. I'm with everybody. But I'm like, hey guys, are we sure that this dude doesn't suck? Because people who watch him play seem convinced he does.
You bought NBA Top Shot at the peak.
I bought the Top Shot at the peak.
You watched everybody. You read Bale's article 3 months after it was posted, when everything was going for thousands of dollars, and then you bought.
Wow. Yeah. So like me and Davis argue about Chase Brown every time I'm on his show. He's bad. He's a bad prospect. So this is from college. So last year he was, out of all running backs at 25 or more carries, he was like dead last in success rate, like bad. But in college on inside runs, he was 20th in that draft class in missed tackle rate, like on inside runs. He like lived outside, just like if he had a tarmac, he was fine. He had a ton of carries. He never really broke tackles. He was just a good athlete. If you got him out in space, like exactly what happened last year.
Yeah.
Well, like there was nothing in his profile that suggested he was actually good. You were just hoping he was just going to get a lot of carries in the NFL or a lot of touches again, and like that would weed out. But I think he has the same problems, and that's what makes his backfield so bad in general. Is like you have a Ham and Egger in the front that like no one even wants Zach Moss. Like, we don't even want him to be the lead guy. Then you have this other guy that we know is like immense upside, but like probably isn't good. He runs like Helen Keller. Like, you give Helen Keller the
mullet. Is that what you're telling me? That we got
the backfield mullet? Yes, it's just
mullet.
absolutely, dude. It is the backfield mullet. And then they don't have neither one of these. Neither one of these guys they want to play on third down, so they're going to go out and get Samaj P. Ryan when he gets cut, and just because he's familiar with Zach Taylor, and they're going to ruin this whole thing. It's just be a.
He's gonna end up getting a haircut before week 1. The whole thing's gonna get ruined.
They had the summer haircut. I go back to work.
This is me. I'm gonna get this cut before week 1. It's all going to hell. Samaji P.
I have no problem taking I have no problem for like the bull case of like, hey, I'm taking a guy just hoping it works out. But I definitely there's definitely an outcome where like he's just not good.
He's just contingent value. The contingent value is the thing that you can like still always like tell yourself is like if Zach Moss goes like worst case scenario he does suck and they get Samaje P. Ryan, it's like he's still gonna play if Zach Moss gets hurt. Like
my biggest thing with the whole situation with the Bengals is like we had this with where it was one guy had the workload and was just okay.
Right.
Like we had one guy getting 75% of the touches and he was still just okay.
Because he wasn't very good. And we don't think either of these guys are very good. So it feels like the same. It's deja vu.
Yeah, I don't want to be like done taking Brown because, you get a lot of the same. Like you're investing in this offense. There's sort of a floor to the.
You want that Chiefs run back?
Yeah, it's kind of it's kind of similar to the Dowdle case in a lot of ways. Where you're like, I don't know, this guy could be good, and it's cheap enough. Now he's gotten more expensive though, and I do think there's something. As we like try to dial in like how to play this portfolio based game and all of our exposures, like drafting someone until you're nervous it's a decent enough way, right? Like I'm nervous now. I wasn't nervous before and I probably need to take them more because it's uncertain and it could pay off, but I am now nervous.
I'm pretty sure Davis has like 30% Chase Brown.
I think that might be like
I think he has more. Because I'm over 20 and I've largely backed off now. I feel very bad about a couple of your portfolio comment. Look, Kendre is about as bad as it can go. Okay. And I really, really liked Kendre as a pick in the 140s. And now he's the last round.
Well, at least he hasn't burned you 2 years in a row.
Yeah, that's true. That's just true. Just no big deal. Just totals. This is the Kyle Pitts experience with another running back. Thank God Rashad Penny retired, by the way.
Yeah.
My two highest.
Mercy on us.
My favorite story to tell people who like are curious about best ball or whatever. It's on my three, and I take pretty heavy player stands. And last year I took really, really heavy player stands, specifically at running back. And I said my 3 highest owned running backs. J.K. Dobbins, I had like 45% J.K. Dobbins on underdog, right? Obviously, we saw how that goes. Snaps the Achilles in the first half of week 1.
Still, he was a good pick.
Number 2, Rashad Penny.
Not
retired.
A good pick, as it turns out.
Literally just retired from the NFL. Number 3, joined Rashad Penny on the retirement line, Damian Harris. Those are my 3. I drafted 3 guys who were the epitome of stone cold zeros, and in a moment in time, I was 5th in BBM and I finished 12th overall and, had a really, 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 really good year. That's the chaos of this stupid game that we play. That if you just so happen to get the right little, you shake all these guys up in a blender, if you're kind of processed structurally and like how you think about the players, I think that's why I love this conversation. It's like how you're thinking about the players is right. Like, I don't love AD Mitchell. I'm not going to be like overweight, but I'm not going to have 0 of that guy. And I'm going to put him on the right. I'm going to put him on the right teams. And I'm going to shake all this shit up in a blender. And if AR and AD Mitchell is the right thing, I'm definitely not going to have 0. So I'm going to be live. And I'm definitely structuring my teams well. And so it's just funny that like, Chase Brown, whatever, if he busts, it is what it is. But I also loved your comment about the until you're uncomfortable. I think that's like sneaky good advice, to be honest. Like draft the guy till you're like, I really am starting to feel nervous about until you're asking yourself, am I sure? Like you're like, am I sure about this? I actually think that's like legit good advice.
It'd be especially where it's an uncertain situation with upside. Like if once you start to get a little nervous, you're like, okay, time to at the very least, it's time to like reevaluate the bet. Go, look at their efficiency again.
Yeah, right. Right. Listen to Rich talk about how fucking bad Chase Brown has been for I don't know 5 years playing football. My second year player, I mentioned it was Bryce Young. I really don't have like a ton to add. I kind of wanted to open up to you guys to see what you guys thought about Bryce Young and like the Panthers, because I've heard, and I from people I respect, I've heard both sides of the coin here. I really did not like Bryce Young as a prospect. I understand he was the first overall pick. Not my kind of a guy. Didn't really like him in college. Not a particularly big fan of 5'7", 160-pound NFL quarterbacks.
5'7".
And well, before he puts his platforms on or whatever that he was wearing at the combine.
If he's 5'7", that would explain a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm slightly concerned after last year. He's even shorter than we thought. But like we talked about Leggett, like Deontay Johnson is fine, right? But like they didn't like make that
he does
major
a thing.
of
Deontay Johnson does a thing,
which is helpful to Bryce.
Yeah,
but I just don't know that Dave Canales and Deontay Johnson and Xavier Leggett and 2 months of Jonathan Brooks. I'm not sure, and Jatavian Sanders, right? Like, I'm not sure that is enough around what Bryce Young is, unless he's just, like I said, am I sure? Technically, I'm not sure, but I just wanted to bring him up for like, are we sure that it's over for Bryce Young? Because I'm not drafting him, and I'm not really into the Panthers, but I'm also open to being wrong about those kind of situations.
Yeah, they're a team I've gotten exposure to just like we think these offenses are terrible or just overpriced for what we just saw, right?
Yeah.
Too much is just discounted for the Panthers offense. I think even Deontay is like pretty well underpriced for where like he could finish, especially the guy that's just been a target earner everywhere he's been, every team he's been on. And you look at year two quarterbacks, they're the number one in like hit rate. And there's been some heinous rookie quarterbacks like Blake Bortles, Derek Carr, Jared Goff. Like these guys all bounced back and like had really productive years when we're values. Since 2010, there's been 59 seasons where a QB2 or a guy outside of QB1 ADP has finished top 12 in points per game. 46% of those have come from years 1 through 3 of a player's career, and the largest subset is year 2 quarterbacks because we just assume they're terrible. And that's granted. Sometimes you get Zach Wilson, sometimes that happens, but and I think the guards definitely matter here too. Like no quarterback was impacted by interior pressure more than Bryce Young last year. I mean, they played 10 offensive guards last year. There's a reason why they went out and got money on Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt like immediately when free agency opened. And I actually have like a subset theory that plays into this, is that because I called him Kyler because he's built like Kyler. Bryce Young. So, well, I do think that it's been a big deal because this happened. Russell Wilson's career's died since this happened. Since we've been in this defensive meta where the defenses want you to throw over the middle of the field now. That's like where we've like transitioned. And the small quarterbacks, I believe, are having issues with that. Russ died because Russ wants to extend plays and big game hunt. That's always been his game. He's never attacked the middle of the field. Kyler's never been good over the middle of the field, but for fantasy, he's fine because he runs around. And it like early career Russ did, but he struggled. And I do have concerns for Bryce Young, even I said, like taking some shots on him, is that the current defensive meta, like he's just not equipped. Like I think it might be a problem. Like the QB size stuff might be a problem in this era of football. And I don't know like if that's a real thing or not, but I definitely believe it's a non-zero thing. And could that impact like is he just playing in the wrong era of football for him to like really succeed?
Yeah, the Goff name is interesting there because that's probably what we're hoping, like the kind of one of the more realistic ones. Like Bortles had a big second year because he's big and ran around and threw it deep and stuff. But
Allen Robinson breakout.
But if we get like Bryce Young, just with a way better designed offense. And an offense that will lean on the run, kind of like we saw with Goff in the Gurley years. Like they're kind of protecting him, but they're also designing for him in a way that the Panthers last year just really struggled to do. And it was just it was poorly designed offense. They couldn't protect him. He didn't have any weapons at all. Getting Deontay,
than that, though,
still there too. Yeah, other than
that.
Thielen's still there.
Hurt his ankle in week 2.
So I'm open to the idea. Like I'm at 6% Young. I just took him actually before he came on here. I I forget who the quarterback one was, but it was like, let's say it was, Trevor Lawrence or, Tua or Purdy or someone. Like, I'm going to probably go 3 quarterbacks. And it was in like the 16th round. I'm like, I got Bryce Young, or I can just take Drake May, which is what I wanted to do. But I had Deontay Johnson, Xavier Legette, and Jonathan Brooks. I'm like, all right, man. Like you, I don't know why, but you built this team over the course of 2 weeks to be a Bryce Young team. Just see it through. Like, you have to just do this now. So that's like where I'm stacking up the Panthers some, and then if Young ends up being there, I'll kind of bring him in. I'm usually doing a 3 quarterback room. I'm usually trying to add an upside guy like a May. I'd include Darnold in that. I would include Daniel Jones in that. I would include Justin Fields in that. Yeah. Like, give me some pop in this room if I'm going to be taking Bryce Young. Pair him with an elite, or have him be like a stable dude where I take some unstable upside. But I think, I probably end up slightly underweight, but he is someone I am drafting.
I think with Bryce Young, him hitting matters a lot more for his pieces than it does for him.
Sure. Yeah. But I mean, just having like a dude, that is, can he give you any kind of like, if he's powering Deontay Johnson, and anyone else, like he'll hit your lineup a little bit. It's very
really. Yeah, I was just about to say,
so
you're really making a fucking awesome sales pitch for the guy. Like, he might like score 17 points twice, and your other quarterback had.
I think I would have made the same sales pitch for Baker Mayfield last year.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And for Geno the year before that.
Yeah, but Baker's like
all the Canales guys.
It's Canales. Yeah, you're betting on Canales. Yeah.
The struggle for me is Bryce. I don't even mean to make it sizist, but like, he didn't score a lot of fantasy points in college playing for Alabama, buddy. Like, you know how hard that is to do? And he did have one of the lesser kind of surrounding casts, right? Like John Mechie got drafted in the 2nd round because he was surrounded by all the worst skill players at Alabama during that time. But like, I don't know, man. Like, when you're like throwing for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns when Alabama scores 60 points in games, and you don't run at all, and you're little, I don't know. It's so hard for me to see it. Like, every single thing we've listed here, and like, there's been the counterpoint to like, are we sure about this? I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. And like, Bryce is the one where like, even when I squint to see it, and not just because he's small, but like, even when I squint to see it, like, it's really, really hard to see this like awesome fantasy, season from Bryce Young. Like you said, maybe it's like he's a little more useful than I thought he was, but
yeah,
like,
that is
how valuable is that to me? Like, why is that worth the risk? Why is that worth the downside?
It's worth, because there isn't that much catastrophic risk. There's risk that he basically,
he's not getting benched.
He's not getting benched. He's playing all the games. The offense should improve, and then it's like, does it improve to the level where he actually hits your lineup at any kind of reasonable rate?
But that is like technically
catastrophic. Yeah, it is. It is sneaky catastrophic. You're right. Yeah.
Benching is worse. Benching is the world ended. But like, this is you're in a coma, right? He's not dead, but he's in a coma.
But Daniel
Jones has, the world's over.
A 3-game Jalen Hurts injury or something, like, you will have a quarterback. Like that's
fair.
Right.
Like, you're technically live. How important is it for you to be technically live at the end of the season?
And I would rather just,
yeah.
Just
I get it, man. It's a boring one.
Then pray for that.
But I didn't really do Baker that much last year, and it was like, and he was horrible. I mean, Baker was horrible the year before.
Yeah.
On the Panthers, like, so I think
he got cut by 2 teams.
Yeah. So I guess, to the theme of the show, I am not sure that the number 1 pick with Dave Canales can't be who's going to start all the games and has better weapons and better protection can't hit my lineup sometimes.
Yep. And I think that's totally fair. Just the only other thing about Baker was like, it was a lot of, this is very descriptive, not necessarily predictive. We had so many other guys that you would have rather had than Baker Mayfield. Like, even though he outperformed at such a level, it was like, nobody gave a shit.
Course.
You know what I mean? When Stroud happens, when even like I would rather I know Baker was playing in the playoffs, but Howell outperformed Baker all year. It just so happened Brock Purdy was really cheap last year, and that was like weird and like kind of
the elbow
cool,
and the Lance stuff. Yeah,
exactly. So
this is why I would say with Young, like I really do prefer him in 3 quarterback builds where he's like helping me do something. Like what is Young helping me do on a Josh Allen build? Like,
no, absolutely nothing.
In fact, he might be keeping me from taking a big swing on something else that actually hits. So, yeah, it's like help me get through some Drake May weeks. Help me, when Justin Fields wins the starting job, then gets benched. Play during those games because he'll be back by the end of the season.
That's actually my favorite point.
That was my pitch to Davis. Is actually Justin Fields starting week 1 worse for if you have him?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is, right? Like, is it
at least for my mental health.
At
least for my mental health. Even if he keeps the job, it's terrible because you're just sweating every pass.
It unlocks the highest upside scenarios, but I will trade those in immediately. Yeah. I will cash those in for the
I wasn't counting on that. I wasn't counting on that anyway. Don't add this stress to my life for an extra 8 weeks.
Downside if he gets benched for Russ week 17. I can't handle that.
No, amazing. Like you feel like you won, and all it did was add negativity to your life.
No,
like that's just painful. All right, let's move on to the next. This one, again, very, very, very open ended. Just like it doesn't have to be best ball related either. Just like the fantasy draft environment. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the wide receiver area. We just talked about late round quarterback. Anything revolving around ADP, best ball structures, blah 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 blah. Anything, Rich, that you're curious about?
This is more your guys' bag for me. I mean, you guys just play a lot more best ball volume than I do, so I mean, this is more your area. I can just try to chime in with what you guys got.
Good. Pat, you got one?
I mean, I would just say like structure. Like we're in such a weird wide receiver pricing environment that I am trying to mess around a little bit. Like I like that. I've done CMC Achane wide receiver, let's say, Devontae Smith or something. And then Andrews Lamar. Like what 1 through 5, is that gonna work? Probably not. Mm-hmm. But like I've done that. I've done straight 0 running back. I'm just like trying to get players that I like in the early rounds together, and I'm being like a little bit more flexible with like the 1 through 5 is something I'm rarely doing, but like I've taken 2 wide receivers through 5 a lot more than I have in the past. I'm normally doing at least I don't know that I have like a single 3 running back 2 receiver. Like if I was going away from 3 receivers through 5, it would be to get at least an elite quarterback or an elite tight end, if not both. But I'm messing around a little bit more with like what I can get away with, given that like one of the things I actually thought for my rookies, I considered saying like, are we sure that like making sure you get a rookie wide receiver in the 5th round as your wide receiver 4 or the early 6th round is like good structure? Like that might be bad structure, and it could be the case then that you really want to go 4 straight wide receivers so that you can, have a non-rookie wide receiver 4, because that's kind of the only way to do it. Not the only way, but I don't want to have like Tyler Lockett as my wide receiver 4. So I'm trying to like, I feel less confident in the rules that we've all come to, believe in.
I like that you said that, because the way things have played out is particularly on Underdog, the ADP where it's so different than everywhere else, is you actually can on Underdog in the first. I like that you brought up the first round, just trying to get good players and then let your build kind of shape from that, because there's never been a year since I've been playing fantasy football where you could theoretically get a top 5 wide receiver, 2 top 5 running backs, a top 5 quarterback, and a top 5 tight end through the first 5 picks. Like if you start Tyreek, you come back and you say you take Achane and Pacheco, or Achane and Kerrane, and then you do Lamar Andrews coming back. Like there's just never been a year where you can do that because of the way the running backs fall and then the way wide receivers are pushing out to push people around. Now you can't do that on every site, but on Underdog particularly, I've noticed it's like, oh, well, like you can like theoretically do this. And no, it makes a lot of inherent sense. It's like, I'm just gonna take 5 good players and kind of build around this.
Yeah, and the tough part about if you end up light at receiver, it is really tough to dig out. But there's, that group of receivers, like we did this last year, right? With a Bateman line. After Bateman, it was over. There was no wide receiver upside, except Nico Collins went after Bateman. You can get you could find production.
Both Texans.
Texans, yeah. There were guys. Obviously, it was a Puka year, so there was no Bateman line.
Thielen.
Did you have Puka?
Yeah, Thielen. Yeah, so there were guys, and this year is offering you more to take the detours. So I also, to be clear, I have a lot of builds where I'm very wide receiver heavy through the first 7 rounds, but I just don't want to only build that way because it's a really weird landscape. It could be the case that not that robust running back or something, or even hyper fragile, but that's just being underpowered at wide receiver because it allowed you to get elites at the onesies plus an elite running back.
Yeah. The archetypes of those players that you're taking matter. You're not going to take Joe Mixon and that structure I laid out. A-Chan, you're taking guys like A-Chan, Kyron, those guys that have done it. So maybe even Etienne fits in that. I don't know, but yeah, that's kind of what you're doing. And it's interesting, man. Listen, when Jalen Hyatt saves us all, we got.
I do think I'm drafting an extraordinary amount of what would be old school zero running back. If anybody uses the tools on the site, we classify running back as what some people might call pretty extreme. You don't have any of the top 24 running backs, which is Warren, I think might be the 24th. It's Warren, Najee,
which in this market is extreme.
That'd be very extreme.
Yeah, but that's just it used to be that was you didn't take your first running back till the 5th round. Now that's the 8th round, right? So we do that for a reason. Obviously, we don't need to get into all that. But even with that, like Pat said, I like to just toy around a little bit. One thing I did for a week straight when I got the 101 was I would mix through who I was taking at the 101, and then at that time you could get Kyron and A-Chan both at the 2-3 turn. And I was like, let's just see how this goes. Because I was drafting exclusively zero running back. Maybe I would dip in for one of those guys in the 3rd round, maybe. And I'm like, let's just play around with it. And I hated it just about every single time. But there's no way to know unless I tried it. And I do think you can play around with so much of the structural stuff. That's why I like the structure rules thing is everybody makes got to have 4 wide receivers through 7. Got to do this. Got to draft. If your first quarterback isn't done by Jordan Love, you got to draft 3. And it's who fucking says? When did these things become? It's not kosher for us to do anything different. We're in basically year 5 of a game, and we have a sample size of 5. And we're never really gonna know. I don't think what our actual rule is. Maybe some really basic stuff don't draft 6 quarterbacks. But around the edges, if you had CJ Stroud and Brock Purdy as your only 2 quarterbacks after your draft, and you posted on Twitter last year, people would have said you're an absolute moron. What are you doing taking only a 2 quarterback team with your quarterbacks around 15 and 16? That's nuts. And now look, if you have a CJ Stroud Brock Purdy team, people are like, why would you ever take a 3rd? With those guys, you know what I mean? Sam Laporta. Again, I'm just citing my best team because it's just an easy example. I drafted a 2 tight end team with 14th round Sam Laporta and last round Cole Turner. Cole fucking Turner. He may not be in the NFL after the next month. But people said you can't do that. You can't absolutely do that. But just playing around with the things that everybody says you can't do. You want to know the easiest way to be different from all the hundreds of thousands of opponents is that stuff. It's not the player take stuff. It's they say I can't draft a 2 quarterback Drake May, Sam Darnold team. Fucking watch me. Watch me do it. And when Drake May is the week 1 starter and Sam Darnold starts 17 games, I'm cooking with gas, buddy. I'm not trying to do that on a bunch of teams, but I'm why can't I draft one team that plays to this really, really unique scenario? Dude, I'm drafting more than 1,000 teams this year, easily. Yeah. So why can't I draft one team for this? I get it. Daniel Jones, Justin Fields, probably not good, right? Probably going to lose. Guess what is usually going to happen? Only 2 out of 12 teams advance.
Yeah.
And some of these tournaments don't pay out till week 17 now. Underdogs taking it even crazier. Why can't I build like something like really kind of off the wall just because it's like not accepted by the whole community?
I think you want to draft loose too, So if you're like in, a $5 tournament, $3 tournament, and you're not willing to like try something out, to me, like that's the purpose of, drafting in volume and drafting in some of the smaller stuff is like, let's mess around a little bit. Let's see how this feels. Let's see what this looks like if I try this. To me, I'm like very hands-on learner that way, where I'm like, I want to give this a shot. And if I throw away a Pomeranian or whatever, throw away a puppy, it'll be okay. It's not like I'm not going to just like experiment in the, like, let me try with a third of my portfolio doing this thing. That's not generally how I'm doing it. But I'm like, hey, this kind of fell in my lap. I got Lamar Andrews sitting here I'm at the turn. I know for a fact I'll get both. If I just take one, I'll take the other. Like, I got him. I only have one wide receiver though. What should I do? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it and see if I can make it work. And then maybe I decide I can't make it work. To be honest, I'm like not sure at all that like 5 straight wide receivers isn't the best like start this year. Like if you just go 5x receiver, that's probably the very safest way to build, because everyone's getting boxed out of receiver. Everyone's worried they're boxed out of receiver. You're not, that, and
you're boxing them out. You're boxing them out.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm open to the idea that like you can take more detours than people think. I'm open to the idea that like all these detours are basically a trap. And so I'm just I'm just less confident in the structural rules than I was last year.
Yeah, I love that. Especially if someone's been married 20 years, all these things have a lot of, a rollover. Let's try it. See how it feels. Just see how it feels.
A lot of 8:30 p.m. Home interactions are popping up in Reeves' head right about now.
Yeah. Kerrane said, let's just try it out.
Why don't you try out sleeping on the couch then, motherfucker? A somewhat similar thing that I'm also curious, and I'm bringing it up similar to the Bryce Young thing because I'm curious what you guys take on is I do think similar to like the ADP environment, and like Pat, you and I have talked about this a ton. Like I think that the wide receiver and the running back pricing is like efficient. The way the market has come around is efficient, and I truth serum me, I think that this is efficient the way that rookies are being priced, but I'm open to the idea that we may have jumped the shark on like some rookies. Like I love Marvin Harrison and I love Malik Neighbors and I love I'm a huge fan of Ladd McConkey and go on down the list. But it's rich. Jamar Chase was one of the better wide receiver prospects in recent memory, and granted, he couldn't catch a football that had the lines on it or whatever. But like, he was a 5th round pick. He was a 5th round pick for a lot of that.
He was
summer.
like a 3rd to a 5th though. Like
he
went.
Yeah, it was like he dropped like a round and a half.
But you guys, you know what I mean? Like over the course of the last 5 years, the evolution of where rookies are going, in particular, rookie wide receivers are going in best ball is like, even still kind of mind-blowing to me, and I'm just like ho-hum.
I remember Amari's rookie year, like he was the highest drafted like rookie in ADP, and he was like wide receiver 19 or 20, and like now we're like it's
DB's rookie year. I think he went in the early 7th, and I remember being like, "Whoa, it's pretty high."
Yeah, he's the 101. CD's the 102/101. His rookie year, he went like where. What? Who goes there now? Like Deontay doesn't. Ladd goes there now. A 2nd round pick. Keon and Ladd go there now. 2nd round picks, and then even the next year, CD he had a fine rookie season, right? And he still only went at the 2-3 turn,
right,
on the Cowboys. And it's like, Marv hasn't played a snap, and Rich just said Kyler can't throw over the middle or see over the line, and Marv is going 13th overall, 12th, 13th overall.
But it's a marriage of both, though, because he's going like wide receiver 10, wide receiver 11. It's just wide receiver 10, wide receiver 11 is now going pick 14 instead of, you know.
He basically has a third-round ADP by like normal running back pricing standards.
Yeah, listen, ETN, if you want to sign up for a Yahoo league right now, he's going in the third round.
There is nothing more triggering than all the sites coming out with their like favorite picks in home league content. And everybody's like, 5th round Malik Neighbors is the best pick. I'm like, fucking 5th round. Like, I'm taking him in the 2nd. What are you talking about? But I'm just curious, you guys. I actually think, to your point, like the super elite rookie prospects are actually kind of priced fine. We can quibble about should Marv be 13th or 17th or whatever. That's fine. I think Neighbors is a totally fine price. Where I start to question it is the Lads and the Keons and the, you know, those guys. AD Mitchell is fallen now, but it's like the fringy prospects where we're just like rookie, maybe some projectable volume, and like, you know, somebody likes him or whatever. And then we're like, look, I like Lad like a lot, but like there's a lot of risk with the Lad profile, as efficient as he was. There's systemic risk that we talked about at the very top with the Chargers. It's just like, how do you feel about us boosting up kind of the 2nd and 3rd tier rookies?
I have nothing to add to that, but I pulled up rookie ADP because I have an ADP database for like since like 2010. Nelson Aguilar was going to pick wide receiver 30 as a rookie. There's some rookie Nelson Aguilar happening out there.
He was
Tavon was a top 30 wide receiver pick.
RIP, man. He just retired.
Yeah. Dude, just looking at some blast in the past, man.
I don't know if I told you guys this. Well, I was a huge Rams fan when they were in St. Louis, obviously. Like diehard, like mega diehard. Went to every training camp practice and shit.
And how old are you?
I'm 36, so this is when I was.
So you hit like
fresh out of
Mike
college.
March shit. Do you hit like Mike March shit? Like
Apex? Like
Apex,
I became my dad was a high school football coach, so I kind of always was into football. But like I became like obsessed with football with Vermeil and Martz and The Greatest Show on Turf and all that. So then they transition out of that, right? They suck. But like Steven Jackson, Chris Long, James Laurinaitis, like all these dudes coming in, and we're like Jeff Fisher, right? That we're not, no more 7 and 9 bullshit is like my favorite quote of all time, and that's what Jeff Fisher, because he finished fucking 7 and 9 or 8 and 8 every single season, and they traded. I will never forget the moment on draft night, like being a diehard Rams fan. And one of my buddies, we had a blog, a Rams blog. We were so obsessed. Like we would blog about we would go to practice and we'd blog about like Rams training camp practice and stuff.
Norris was in like the rooms with those, like that.
I know.
Yeah. Norris was working with those teams.
If this was modern day best ball, I would have had a site that people would like take and steal news from. Like this guy's at training camp practice, and like it was legit that we were those people. It was not good or whatever, but like I was super into it. RamsCentral.com is what it was called. So anyway, they trade the farm for Tavon Austin, and like I loved college football as well, and like we had the old college football video game then, and West Virginia was absolutely fucking unstoppable with Tavon and everything.
Oh yeah.
And before I knew anything about
Stedman Bailey too.
Oh, dude, and they drafted both. They basically tried to recreate West Virginia without Pat White and Steve Slayton. And I was like, I was in, dude. I was fucking in. I'm like, this is the greatest college wide receiver ever. Go check this highlight tape, and we got Stedman Bailey, who is awesome. And like, I thought it was totally fine for them to sell the future for 5'7" Tavon Austin, 8th overall. 8th overall pick. That's the evolution of my football takes.
To the rookie pricing stuff, I would say that one of the things last year that definitely jumps out to me is like, again, kind of that Bateman line thing of like, when am I taking a guy because the room is kind of dictating to me that this is when I take this position, and I'm now going to have to like be overweight these guys because I have to. Like, what if I don't have to, actually? And
it's like a combination of these, right? Like
it's a combination of these, yeah. And the rookies, yeah. where it starts for me just generally, I think is probably in round 4 is when I start to feel like this is where I'm taking these guys mostly because I just need to. But there's guys I like in round 4 wide receiver. Round 5, it starts to get like a little bit more sketchy. And then round 6 and 7, you are talking a lot about these rookies who are really getting pulled up. And that is, I think, a dangerous place to be in, where you're like, I don't necessarily love this bet at this price, but if I don't do this, then I don't know what else to do, you know? So, and sometimes I am just skipping that tier and grabbing a running back and then going three wide receivers through like 8 or 9 rounds. Usually 9, because there's no wide receivers after, once they dry up, they're gone. So
unless you love Cortland Sutton, there's nothing to do. Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, it's like, I guess I would really like for these rookies to hit. we need them. We need them.
It'd be really cool.
It'd be really cool. Rich, you got anything else on the I like specifically? I think that Ladd, Keon, Brian Thomas, right? Like these guys who are like fine, but like not historically 6th and 7th round picks in fantasy.
It's all context, like we talked about. Just it's that's just where the wide receiver 40 is going. Like it won't happen in your home league, but it's happening here.
Yeah.
I mean, I get there have been like breaks. Like I've messed around a little bit, like with Pat said. I'm not playing as much volume as you guys, but I literally have done the opposite, where I've tried to do like reverse engineer anchor hero RB builds based on volume, where I open with 3 or 4 wide receivers, and then there's just a running back sitting there that I know is just going to get a bunch of volume, right? And I'm just taking the volume, not necessarily I believe the player is good, but like there's scenarios where you open with 3 or 4 wide receivers and you get like a Mixon or a Kamara or someone like that. And it's like, I'm just going to take that player because I'm not going to take Jaden Reed instead of like, it's obvious breaks where wide receiver is. And I'm trying to like try to do like, well, does this count as an anchor RB build? It looks like an anchor RB build. In the past,
I think it does.
In the past, it looked like it would have been, because you'd have taken Kamara or someone in the 2nd round, and then you just took receivers. But I've tried to do stuff like that too, that like it's, just mix it around. But I just think the rooms, it's better. Everyone knows, like, rookie contract players like provide the most value. It's elevated those guys. It's just the rooms are just sharper.
Yeah. Also, that's a really good like final point on that one. That it is what you would have done 5 years ago with an anchor hero running back build, you're still doing, just in a different order. You're just drafting them in a different order. So like once you can wrap your head around that, like it's hard to wrap your head around it because everybody just says, I took him in the 7th round. I took him in the 7th round. And it's like, but James Conner is the workhorse running back for the Arizona Cardinals, man. Like he actually himself, and Kenyon Drake went at the 1-2 turn. You were drafting Kenyon Drake at the 1-2 turn for this role. And we now have this guy going in the 7th round. Just treat him as your workhorse lead back. I'm not saying only draft, I'm not saying draft hyper fragile. I'm just saying, like, think about it. You just drafted the guy you used to draft in the 2nd round. So yeah, you had to draft the 9th round wide receiver in the 5th now, but like, it's just changing the order.
Yeah. Chris Carson used to be a 3rd rounder, and now he'd be an 8th rounder.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Chris Carson as well. All right. Let's wrap with some bad players. This is one of my favorite ones. I love, like I said, I love talking about the shitty players, and specifically love talking about, like, are they good? Like, are they bad players hiding, good players hiding in plain sight, or are they, how bad are they? That kind of stuff. Rich, I'm sure you got a whole bag of potentially interesting.
Yeah, there's a few of them. I mean, to me, the most obvious guy still is Najee Harris, right? Like the most deadest profile of guys, but like, this is a dude that like constantly is just like, coaches are always going to love a dude like Najee Harris. They always will. And what's interesting about the dynamic this year is now with Arthur Smith, like, I mean, his backfields have averaged 500 touches, like wherever he's gone.
Yeah.
Like there's a world where both of these guys coincide and hit, but like there still is a thorn. Like, what if like Najee could score 15 touchdowns? He scored 8 or more every year. He's got 2 double-digit. He's got 2 at 10. Like, what if he scores 15 touchdowns? What if he's this year's David Montgomery? I think is what I'm saying. Like, what if the Steelers backfield is last year's Lions? is what I'm saying. I think that's what I'm saying.
I think we're all happy. We can all live in that
Yeah,
world.
I'm in on this.
Yeah. So basically, what if he's like, David Montgomery, right? It was like, because I just feel like guys like Najee Harris, Blake Corum, who's entering the NFL, Brian Robinson, like these guys are not particularly special players, but these are guys like coaching staffs always will kind of give the benefit of the doubt. And they do things. You brought it up earlier with the Chase Brown thing. Like Najee's now Jalen Warren's not going to do the Chase Brown thing where he's going to run you into 2 yards and outs, 2 yard outs. But like Najee's always going to get you those 4. Get you them 4. And coaches love that shit, man. Especially a guy like Mike Tomlin. Like Mike Tomlin loves that shit, man. Like, but
Greg Brano's Coach Speak Index. He was talking about how Tomlin, when it's raining, he thinks Najee Harris is better in the mud.
In the mud, the
oh
best
my
player
God.
in the mud. It's like the LaShawn McCoy snow tires take.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's the one that stands out, the most obvious guy, because he's like, no one ever, because you never feel good when you click the button, right? Like you're like, oh man,
no,
what am I doing?
He's never had a 40-yard run, right? Isn't that the stat that he's never had a 40+ yard run?
But when you're laying out, like especially in a like underdog where it's a little more touchdown driven. And he'll catch a couple passes, but he's lost that role basically in the offense. But like, there's a scenario where he does score 12 to 15 touchdowns. I can absolutely not even talk. I don't even like really have to squint to see it.
No,
you're right. You're right. I don't take him enough because I just take Warren whenever I think about taking him.
Their ADPs are very similar.
Yeah, but I have, I have 30% Warren. He's my highest drafted player, but I do have 4% Harris, and I really try to take him. I really try.
You just got to force yourself to get that number up a little bit.
I do. I won't because I'm just going to take Warren, but I should.
The Steelers in general, we didn't talk. They're another one of those offenses we didn't talk about that we give Arthur Smith so much shit for the last year, especially the last year of our lives of fantasy footballers. But like his overall resume, he's built productive offenses. And even if you go back 2 years ago when it probably shouldn't have worked with Marcus Mariota, it worked. How much was it just sidecard by how bad Desmond Ridder was? And that could exist with Fields and Wilson, obviously, as well. But his offenses have scored touchdowns, like wherever he's been. Even those Titans teams were scoring 40 to 50 touchdowns a year. Like with Ryan Tannehill and Derek, like what if Pat Freiermuth and George Pickens are undervalued? Like what if this offense does have like a scenario where it scores 35 plus? I won't say they're going to score 50, but like what if they score 35 plus more touchdowns? Especially in that division, like that's that division, they beat the shit out of each other. Like it just is what it is.
The other thing, I'm used to like the Steelers having like a pretty bad offensive line, but Brandon Thorne's got him 15th. PFF had him 9th. They're not bad.
They've sunk a lot of draft capital into the offensive line.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a good pick. He's a prudent selection that I'm not making.
And you never feel good about it.
You never do. All right. So I went back. Now this rush yards over expected metric NFL Next Gen has. I totaled up. Now the metric started in 2018. All right. So we don't have a long history, and a lot of the players who have scored worst in it were at the tail end of their careers. But I'm just gonna tell you guys over their career, the worst scores in total rush yards over expected. Todd Gurley, minus 319. That's late career. Late career, Devonta Freeman. Not just late career. Alvin Kamara at minus 253, but obviously tilted towards the end. Jamal Williams at minus 215. LaShawn McCoy, minus 187. Sony Michel, minus 183. Peyton Barber, just prime of his career, minus 164. LeGarrette Blount, minus 152. CEH, minus 151. And then Rashad White, minus 140. Rashad White stinks. We know he stinks. He can't play. But are we sure about that? Because he's going to get all the receiving work. He as a rookie got on the field in a Tom Brady offense on receiving downs. He was splitting series with Fournette. He wasn't just coming in certain package roles. Like he was allowed to pass protect for Tom Brady. He's actually a bigger back. He's like 217 or something. He's got like a pretty big frame for a receiving back. Not an undersized guy. And then he was a great receiving prospect and has been very solid as a receiver in the pros. Nothing special like we thought maybe he could be, but he's definitely going to have that work. And then, like, I don't know, like, could he possibly maybe be efficient as a rusher? Because if he is, he might be a smash. And this is from someone who never takes him. So this is
I actually think he's a good pick at AP. So I like that you're saying,
yeah, like I have taken him. I'm at 2% on Rachaad White. I basically don't take him. And I am starting to feel this is a true, like, are you sure about that question to myself? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, Bucky Irving might stink. He might be able to just hold down the job just like he did last year. And then you're getting like this free look at like a bad runner doesn't run quite as bad. You know, you get a little, you just get lucky a little bit on the efficiency. Like you have to be so bad. You have to be late career, about to retire running backs to post this kind of inefficiency. Like maybe we just get, something coming back towards league average, still below, but closer. And then I think he can pay off like a 6th round ADP. And especially if you're building, like, I was wondering, Reeves, if you were going to mention him as one of the guys that you can kind of do an anchor running back with.
Yeah, he fits this because I think at ADP, he's one of the guys I've done it with because especially this is one I think people are double counting again. Like I brought up the Kerrane stuff. He had 74, just under 75% of the backfield touches last year. He's 3rd in the NFL behind Mixon and ETN. They were always going to add a guy. They didn't have anyone else. They were always going to add a guy. So when Bucky Irving gets drafted, people are like, inefficient player, add a guy. He's dead. He's dead, right? But no, I mean, especially this is a team that was 2nd in the NFL behind the Vikings. 78% of their touchdowns were passing last year. Again, it's about to be a tighter split just by, just natural regression. He checks, so he keeps popping up. I did this series last week. So I did a what we can learn from ADP and then what are like the stats that truly like are sticky year over year. And we know volume is stickier than efficiency. And we know we want, if you're going to brave the dead zone backs that always combat the dead zone, you want players in their rookie contract that catch passes. Like he keeps checking all these objective boxes where you would be like, nope, he makes sense. He makes sense. He's going to still be a high volume player, even giving carries, even giving touches to Bucky Irving. But Bucky Irving's never going to be a threat at the goal line because he's 192 pounds and coaches do this shit all the time. They're never give 190.
The other guy's Chase Edmonds.
The other guy's Chase Edmonds, and so the 220-pound guy is always going to get the goal line touches, even if he's conceding some work to Bucky Irving. I believe he's going to hold on to that. He's going to hold on to the 3rd down stuff. So he can give away touches. But like you said, the big thing is, can we get closer to like the mean in efficiency? Because if he just is adequate, he's going to look, we're going to look back on it and be like, it was the most obvious thing. Like is we had a dude, because here's the other thing, running, there's like almost a Konami code now within the running back position. It's like started to shift. Running back touches continue to go down. Running back targets have dropped per game 6 straight NFL seasons. Eventually that can't zero out. There'll be a dead cat bounce, but running backs that catch the football are a little bit like how mobile quarterbacks were when I originally run. Like we're getting this weighted production that people aren't counting, because even if you're in a league that doesn't give you full PPR points, the average reception goes for the longer gain than the average rush. Right. You inherently know this. You're getting more. It's just more bankable. And this is a guy that definitely, if you were to lay out running backs are going to catch 60 plus passes, he would be on your list. You would get to him like relatively like soonish. So 60 plus receptions, a shot to score more touchdowns, potentially maybe be more efficient. Like why wouldn't we draft that? A player on a rookie contract. Good athlete, not bad athlete. Like it just makes sense. It just makes sense objectively when you can remove yourself from be like, I watched him, he sucked.
Yeah. It's honestly scaring me. Like I think I'm just gonna try to get, I'm not gonna like hammer him now and get up to even, but like I don't want to have where it kind of came to me is that I was like, I am like hard fading this guy. Like he is not even draftable. I'm like, he's draftable in the 6th round. He paid off a 7th round ADP last year. He can't pay off a 6th round ADP. Like he can. So I want to be, I think towards the end, I want to try out actually some more of these, like,
I mean, people
really
love James
heavy
Cook.
wide receiver builds.
People love James Cook, right? And like,
I love James Cook.
It's like James Cook plays with a mobile quarterback that threatens like overall receptions and touchdowns. Like we want guys that don't play with those guys. And Rachaad White plays with Baker Mayfield. Like a check always is thrown to running backs and is not going to threaten your goal line touches.
But Reeves, James Cook is good and Rachaad White definitely isn't.
It's true.
This is I'm so happy that you brought these two guys up. And honestly, Rachaad White was painful for me to hear you.
And let's be real, we're all gonna name running backs.
I decided to get a wide receiver just because I thought it'd be funnier. I had a little small list of basically all running backs, but I got a wide receiver in my bag that'll make us all cringe. But the Rachaad White thing made myself cringe while you were talking about it, because I was like, this is like the thing that I kind of live by running back wise in fantasy. I love to draft the guys that all of the other, like, even if the people like Pat or like the Ship Chasers or like the Seagulls of the world, right, the RotoViz people, they won't draft these running backs because they're boring. Pat and I had a fun little bit that,
he doesn't have the legendary upside.
Yeah, and no one's arguing that for Rachaad White, but Pat and I did a funny bit that, like, if you place him in the Harry Potter houses, which house do they go into? And the really fun, sexy names go into the Slytherin house. And the really boring ass names go into the Hufflepuff house, and you never fucking hear about them again, right? You watch every Harry Potter movie. How many times did they mention Hufflepuff? Goddamn, never. But it's still a house. Still a house. It's still a thing. It's keeping turning. The lights are still on, partially because of Hufflepuff. And those running backs.
Teaching magic.
Hufflepuff pays the bills.
Hufflepuff pays the bills.
Still teaching magic at Hufflepuff.
Exactly. Like it's still a thing, right? It didn't go away. They didn't get rid of the position and put in a new kickoff rule, and there's no longer Hufflepuffs around. But those backs can be undervalued.
I can't even name a character in those movies that wasn't a Hufflepuff. I don't know.
No,
wasn't the guy? Forget it. Went in the. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Who cares?
Yeah, I should look. Who's the most?
I'm trying to derail it.
Who is the most famous Hufflepuff?
It's the guy who dies, right? In the.
That's Robert Pattinson. It's Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, he's Hufflepuff, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, he is, isn't he?
Yeah,
he is.
It's Batman.
Yeah, I can't remember his actual name. Cedric something?
Cedric.
Yeah, I forget. Yeah.
Cedric Diggory.
Yeah.
There we go.
Hufflepuff.
All right.
Yeah.
So not hitting our name.
Spoilers for Harry Potter and the third hour of this pod. Sorry, guys.
If you haven't watched
Cedric Diggory does die.
Yeah. They are bringing it back as an HBO show.
I know. I know. Okay. My wife is obsessed with Harry Potter, so that's why the stupid Harry Potter references have come about. But the point is, right, that the boring guys who the coaches like,
nice and on the rails.
Yeah, it wouldn't be Legendary Sickos without some ridiculous off the rails rant. But like those guys end up doing all the shit on the football field and playing more, and then in turn scoring more fantasy points. Because guess what? Like, no offense, Bucky. Bucky is a fine, like, at what he does. But like you said, he's 190 pounds. He was never a workhorse in college. He didn't really get the goal line stuff a lot at Oregon. The current back that they have, Jordan James, was that guy, because he is the like 220-pound back. He's like a gadgety back, which is a useful NFL player. But like when we're trying to map out how do I score the most, how do I somehow get this guy that scores like an exorbitant amount of fantasy points, maybe even a lot better than they are as an actual football player? It's that archetype, right? It's the bullshit Zeke. Like Zeke has sucked for the longest time ever, but he's a scam in fantasy because he's out there for the goal line work. He's out there for the passing down work. He happens to be in a situation where the quarterback's checking down, right? And it's like, they're like, what else are we going to do? You know, Kevin Harris? No, thank you. I'm not interested in doing that thing. Those guys, Brian Robinson, right? Devin Singletary, like run down the list of all these guys that they're just fantasy scams. They're not great NFL football players, but at running back, I think we often get it wrong. And when you were talking about Rachaad White, I was just like, fuck, like this is my thing. Like I'm supposed to be the guy that's like, no, every zero running back bro hates Rachaad White and I'm drafting him. And I haven't been. And I think you honestly just totally nailed it. So I'd like Pat said, I'm not going to get to maybe where I even would want to be, but I think he's
I won't get where I want to be, but
he had 6 games with over 18 half-point PPR points, 3 with over 20. Like those are, you're going to use those.
You're going to use those.
Yeah, you're going to use those.
Yeah.
And the like it's crazy to say he's kind of a small miss, big win player. I'm not sure small miss, medium win maybe is more like it.
Doesn't really have big wins.
But on those builds, like you said, where you start 3 to 4 wide receivers and you can just add him.
Yeah.
That he matters on those rosters.
100%. You
He
can
does.
use him as your anchor running back, and we know he sucks. Like, if he is as bad as he was last year, it's still like helping you. Like, that's what we want, right? Unless he loses the job.
We know he sucks that I'm just never going to bet on. Like, we know he sucked. Like, Alexander Madison, I was like completely out on last year. Was on Fareed's winning team, by the way. But I was completely out on Alexander Madison. I think he was a bad pick. We knew he sucked, but we also knew that him sucking was going to make it harder for him to get used all the time, right? Like, he's going to consolidate all the snaps. Well, that's going to be tough because he sucks. And he's not a great receiver. Like, he doesn't have some locked-in receiving role. He's like whatever as a receiver. With White, it's actually very likely that he has the full workload. He is a good receiver, which is one of the reasons it's likely he keeps the workload. So now it just comes down to like a much more narrow bet of like, he sucks at running the ball in a backfield without really maybe another option. So that's where I think we're maybe now that I do think like, man, he might just be expensive Devin Singletary, and that is really going to hurt in this environment.
Draft them both on the same team and you'll find out.
Yeah, no, it exists. But I'll tell you what, I would be totally blown away if that, like, in the same offensive environment, like Bucky Irving just like has like a Jalen Warren type of versus like the splits are that jarring. I would be blown away.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like, I've almost been like, it's like kind of like I say like I'll bet on chaos and stuff, but I don't even know. Like, you need a lot of chaos. Like, what is the chaos? Like, what is the specific thing that keeps White from? Because if
injury.
I'm gonna have
injury,
injury,
yeah,
that's it.
But that's not enough to be at 2%. Like,
everybody has that. Yeah,
everyone has that. Yeah, so I just got to get more of them.
No, I like it.
Yeah,
because I genuinely thought at his ADP, like I said, he just keeps standing out. It's like you gotta just reluctantly take it.
Yeah, and we're talking about like the Ken Walker rise is feeling uncomfortable, and like I certainly don't feel comfortable with Alvin.
Yeah,
Kamara,
I think he's an outright better pick than Ken Walker. Like I mean, without just based on face value, I think he's a better pick.
He's certainly a better pick. He's certainly a less fragile pick to like hold up to this. I mean, Zach Charbonnet could just take the shit from him. Like that's not my expectation, right? I'm not saying that that's the favorite, but like if Ken Walker does what Ken Walker does, and they're just finally like enough of this, bouncing to the outside, trying to hit a home run every time. We got a guy who's he's not going to hit the 60-yarder, but he's never going to have the -4. He's going to get 5 every time. Like that's Zach Charbonnet. He's going to catch it.
It's a lot more likely that, last 4 weeks of the season, Zach Charbonnet has 55% of the backfield carries. Then Bucky Irving has 55% of the Buccaneers carries. And
Zach Charbonnet could get the high value touches that Bucky probably
more likely for goal line work.
Zach Charbonnet might be Rachaad White. Zach Charbonnet might be Rachaad White.
Maybe.
Like big, kind of doofy, inefficient. It's the same guy. Like we're just like, he's whatever. Like he's fine. I know he was more.
It doesn't make me feel good about getting more White, but I like the Charbonnet bags.
Arbitrage, Rachaad White. All right, I got one more. Let's close this baby out. I promise.
I had to pee for 35 minutes.
Well, hopefully this one doesn't make it too much longer.
We got. Man, it's really tough.
But I have to mention a wide receiver who I think we have all decided is bad. And last year, Pat mentioned he happened to be the cutoff of the wide receivers who we thought were good. Rashad Bateman is getting the most endless. He's getting the Calvin Ridley. He's the 2024 Calvin Ridley camp hype treatment.
He's second round pick by the end of summer.
From the Baltimore Ravens. But we haven't
budged
on
Devontae Parker.
Yeah, we haven't budged on the Rashad. We've drawn the last year. Everybody said, okay, Calvin Ridley goes from the 4th round to the 2-3 turn from all the buzz. We said, no, we did the Bateman thing last year, right? Yeah, and what has really changed other than we have another year of Rashad Bateman being bad, of course, which is notable, but nothing about his situation has really changed. And we're just like, nah, fuck this. We're done. Like, I'm done.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that Zay Flowers proved he could play.
Yeah.
That's
the
point. Which is because this team's just not going to have the raw pass attempts. And granted, we did see there's going to be some recoil here. The Baltimore Ravens last year ran only 85 plays trailing in the second half last year. Well, the fewest for any team since 2015, like the seventh of the last
85
decade.
total.
But so if you look at from like a pass rate over expectation or like first half drop back rate, they were top 10. Like the Monken stuff did happen. They were more aggressive. They were just pistol whipping teams, and they never had the throw in the second half of games. They were never challenged. That will regress. So maybe a third option, because the biggest bugaboo in the Lamar Jackson era is like there's just not enough raw attempts to make a third guy viable.
Yeah. But are there? You know,
maybe
that's because the defense is going to take a big step back in, you know, most outcomes, right? Is we're getting a big step back from the defense given the offseason.
We saw the Eagles had very splits like this either, and for the front half of the season, it really still mattered for their fantasy guys. And then like Hurts got injured, and like it kind of torpedoed as kind of house of cards. But like through 10 weeks, we were getting like the Eagles back and forth games we wanted, and like all the fantasy dudes were getting there. Like through half, people don't remember this. Through like 10 weeks last year, DeAndre Swift was at RB1. Like,
and AJ Brown was
matching Tyreek Hill. You know, part of that was because Washington was like Emmanuel Forbes trying to guard AJ Brown, but like
that was awesome.
Cool. That was fun.
That was so fun.
But if you look at under the cover though, like the Monken stuff was happening. All the reasons to be excited about Monken going to the Ravens did happen last year. It's just that nobody put up a fight against them. Like they just clobbered teams. They just clobbered teams. No, they smoked San Francisco.
Oh
too.
Yeah,
like
right.
So literally,
I'm betting on volume for the Ravens in a way that, you know, not like they're going to be like crazy high in volume, but that's my read is that Monken brought what we wanted to bring.
He did.
You're getting a chance to, if you're betting on the Ravens this year, like it's not common that we have like a coaching, like team level thesis, right? Monken's going to change, going from Greg Roman to Todd Monken's going to change this offensive philosophy. And I'm then willing to bet on this offense at elevated prices.
That's the Falcons this year.
That's the Falcons. And that's what we did last year a bit with the Ravens. Then we get information that strengthens that thesis, that makes it more likely that Monken will bring volume to this offense, but it's hidden by the defense preventing them or just making it unnecessary for them to really put their foot on the gas. And so we feel even more confident now, right, that Monken is actually going to add this potential, and the prices have fallen. Like I just think the Ravens, as we look back, like they could be one of the key ways to play best ball drafts this year.
But my to put a bow on it, as we usually say about 45 minutes before we wrap up around here, I promise we won't, Rich. But is Rashad Bateman a way to play it? Are you?
Yeah, sure. Because you have multiple outs. One, it could just be just like we laid out. You get that. You just give the game script flip, and that pass rate over expectation shows more in the raw passing attempts. You have any injury basically, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how cute are you guys now taking this to like Isaiah Likely though, or like anything else?
I like it. I'm drafting Likely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I wrote about it because people have talked about the Lamar rushing last year was down, but in the first half of games last year, he had a league high 42 scrambles. They were 9th in the NFL in dropback rate in the first half of games. He only had 26. The next closest quarterback had 26. He only had 26 in the second half because
this is making it move over here.
Yeah, man. They had the second lowest. They had the lowest rated dropback rate in the second half last year because again they trailed for 85 total plays, and
that's
37 of those plays came in week 18 when Lamar didn't play, when they rested him.
Hang on.
Unbelievable. They were trailing for 40 plays while Lamar Jackson was playing.
So they only trailed in the second half in totality in 3 games Lamar Jackson played last year.
Unbelievable.
Like there was only 3 different times. So the other cool thing though, the other thing that ties this though, there's some other dope part about the Ravens is the addition of Derrick Henry and what it does. So Lamar for his career has been phenomenal against heavy boxes, like as a passer. Like his best passing splits come against heavy boxes. And that would make sense because you think about like the Shanahan system and guys that like outkick EPA, right? Like the Grappols of the world. But like it's going to just dictate like adding Derrick Henry here versus because the last 2 years, remember, they've been rotating dudes like number 17, Le'Veon Bell, and
Devonta Freeman,
Dalvin Cook. last year. They picked him up. Remember?
Dude.
I forgot about that.
Just vagabonds. They've just been.
Who was the guy we picked up on
vagabonds.
waivers that was like literally
Tyson
nothing?
Williams.
Tyson Williams.
Tyson
Oh,
Williams.
God.
And now you add Derrick Henry dictating these box counts. And like, I mean, there's an avenue where like, absolutely, like, I mean, it's not hard to squint, obviously, ever and say Lamar could be the QB1. Like, he's the best value. And he goes QB4 usually. But like, I mean, the whole Ravens in general, like all this could just be a lot better because they just get more competition like we did with the Eagles 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Or, 2 years last year.
Yeah, I'm taking Bateman. The grossest thing I've done.
I actually think Bateman's so good at football though. So
I have taken Nelson Aguilar like a couple times.
Okay. That is when we need it. Once we reach the Nelson Aguilar part of the show, I think that's when it's about the perfect time to sign up.
Dude, that was the second Nelson Aguilar drop on this.
That's true. Yeah.
We do talk a lot about. There's a lot of nonsense that gets covered here.
I think Bateman can play though. I think he can
play too. Yeah.
There's a part. There's just another place in the multiverse where this played out, where he just wasn't banged up early to start his career. Remember, he was good, and early career sample when he played was really good, and just got kind of snake bitten and fell behind. A little bit on the depth chart and things.
Doesn't seem to be on the same page with Lamar over the last couple of years, but has a healthy offseason, so maybe that changes. Like, I think he's still like decent enough in the route running stuff. I know Harmon's generally been a fan of him. I'm not sure how he looked last year, but
I was for sure you were going to say Jerry Jeudy. So
absolutely not. I'm not. I don't want to talk about the Browns nor Jerry Jeudy. We would have went Steve Smith on Jerry Jeudy. Just the last thing on Rashad Bateman. I know we don't want to like listen to like the hype machine stuff, right? That's how we fall into the Calvin Ridley trap. We don't want to listen to what the beat writers are like watching on the field and getting their scouting analysis, because they're not scouts, right? They're beat writers. But it has felt so it like the JMO things feels a little bit like that to me. Like it's like they're going so fucking far out of their way to like hype. It's like it's one thing to be like he's gotten a lot better. Right. It's like that happens all the time, right? Jordan Whittington is getting like, oh, he's better than we thought he was. It's like,
I'm drafting some of him too.
Yeah, sure. Of course you are. Sure. Like, fine, whatever. Jordan Whittington, he's better than you thought he was.
Yeah. Day 3 rookie on the Rams could never work, Erik, huh?
Yeah, exactly. With a fucking 1.2 yards per route run for 5 years at Texas. But like, right there, it's like Sean McVay being nice about Jordan Whittington. And maybe he is better than Sean McVay thought. But that's different from every fucking day. They're like,
it is.
Rashad Bateman is the man. They're like he is the man. And so I'm not trying to let that weigh on me, but I wanted to bring him up to hear what you guys had to say. And now I'm just going to go draft Rashad White and a shitload of Raven stacks once we get once we get off here. Rich, you got anything other than a restroom trip coming up?
Yeah, definitely got pee. But no, listen, it's been great, man. It's just like this was great. I love this, and I love hanging out and just riffing on things like this. Kind of a lot of fun things to talk about. But we're in the 11th hour, man. If you haven't figured it out yet, I mean, go to sharpfootballanalysis.com, and I wrote a bunch of things this offseason.
Pat,
I'll just note Harmon still is in on Rashad Bateman. He says plenty of reason to keep the candle lit.
He's still good. He's still a good player.
Yeah, still a good player. So, but Legendary Upside just had an article out today, as I mentioned, on Rico Dowdle. Did a 4-part series on the running backs going around 7 through 10 last week. Daniel Raz had a really good article out. We're doing a ton of content, obviously, as Rich mentioned. This is game time now. So check out legendaryupside.com. Check out the Sidekick Dynamic Best Ball Rankings tool. Hop in the Leg Up Discord if you're a Sidekick member. We got instructions on how to test out the DraftKings Sidekick, which we will explain exactly everything in there. But we've got that in kind of test mode over in the Discord.
And if you are a Legendary Upside subscriber, you can get 40% off of the Spike Week tools. If you are using Pat and I did last week, actually, you can see it in practice. We did a DraftKings high stakes $555 draft with the Draft Hacker and the Sidekick together, and it really is pretty fucking awesome. We did draft Lamar on that team. By the way, no Bateman, but we did draft Lamar. And same thing as these guys. it's just like basically what I'm doing with my content is all the stuff down the home stretch. I'm like, here's all I'm finishing an article. I'm literally going to add Rashad White to it to be like, I have 1% of this guy and I'm pretty fucking sure that was wrong. So we're going to like all the stuff that I'm actively doing in my drafts. You'll see it's in the almanac. There's a link to that in the description, and we will see you guys next week for another episode of Legendary Sickos.